Out of the gates and ready to go. Friday edition. It's finally here, Chad.
Let's go.
Finally here.
Finally made it, Hutton.
It's time for the weekend. And
you know, Matt said we wouldn't make it.
3 hours.
But here we are once again. Every week, Matt doubts us. Says we're not going to make it. And guess what? We make it at the end of the week, and we're going to close strong.
And we never doubt Matt.
Ever.
Barrett Sallee joins us in 20 minutes. A lot to discuss from the college football world and, of course, the draft week from yesterday. And a week from today, Chad, we'll have a lot of discussion about the quarterbacks in the first round. Barrett Sallee will have to give us his take on how he would rank QBs just based on the college play. And I think the overall sentiment is a bit different right now because people are buying in that C.J. Stroud is going to fall in the first round. We'll get Barrett's take on that. Sam Amico joins us to talk NBA playoff headlines. There's plenty there, too. And Ryan Leaf in hour number 3. Quarterback discussion, and more. Chad, good afternoon.
Hutton, it's an exciting time to be here. Not only is it a Friday, but we are now 6 days away from the start of the NFL draft. There's a packed house at 6th and Peabody.
Yep.
There are bachelor and bachelorette parties everywhere, and we're ready to go.
So, players have been suspended for gambling.
Yes.
And the college football world has been turned on its face based on a rule change that you hate.
Both things have happened. Where should we begin? College football rules?
Yes, let's start with that because that will be jarring, I think, to the average college football fan.
So, came down today, Dennis Dodd, with the initial report that for the first time since 1968, clocks will no longer stop on first down in NCAA games. Surprisingly enough, Division III is the only one that this will not change in. They pushed the vote back on it. Look, I've got no huge, ideal concept of whether or not the clock should stop on first downs or not. But I do really have strong feelings on the college game being different from the NFL game. And this is one of the things that makes it different. And because I don't have a strong opinion on it, I think they should have kept it. I've got no huge opinion on how much this is going to change the game, how much it's going to shrink the game time, all of that. If you want to shrink game times in college football, cut down the halftime. That's going to be the biggest thing that's going to cut down on game times in college football versus the NFL. I'm all for that change. But when it comes to pass interferences being 15 yards as opposed to a spot foul, players being down by contact or not, when they're down in college, these are things I enjoy about the college game. The college overtime system, to me, is superior to the NFL system. But either way, I celebrate the differences between college football and the NFL. And the clock stopping on first downs is one of those differences, and I don't see a reason to remove that from the game. So many people want to make everything milquetoast and uniform, and there are times in sports that makes sense. This is not one of them. College is a feeder system to the NFL. Doesn't mean it needs to be NFL junior. It's a different sport. It's a different game. It's got some different tweaks to the rule books, and I'm great with that. Let's keep it. Let's keep the NFL out of college football. Let's make it separate, but equally as enjoyable in different ways. So I don't like this ruling by the NCAA to change this, where the clock is now going to run.
For half a century, it's been this way.
1968.
Why all of a sudden?
I think that
why was it proposed?
They are feeling the pinch of game times being too long, and they like the neat television package that the NFL has, and this is one way to do it without pissing off the bands at their schools.
Well, yeah.
So, and look, this is, if you're going to look at it from a strategic standpoint, this is, I think, it's a rule that will benefit those that are more accustomed to playing fast in 2-minute situations, because it was a great crutch to have if you were a team that played slower and didn't have a high-octane offense to go down and score, knowing that clock was going to stop on the first down. But the teams that naturally move faster, I think, will be an advantage late in games.
So this is a TV rule, is what you're...
I guess, yeah.
So on average, the game will be reduced by 7 plays because of this rule change. And my question would be, it's no secret that the NFL, they want games to be between 3 hours and 5 minutes and 3 hours and 7 minutes. That's their sweet spot. 60 Minutes needs to run in the entirety on CBS from 6 to 7 p.m. Central. That's all. This isn't some new phenomenon. So I don't know why in 2023 they're doing this instead of 2022 or 2018, because it's always been discussed in the NFL. And it's separated
talk
on that
about,
rule with college football.
Well, there's been talk about the college game being too long for a while, and maybe they just now got around to it, saying this is one way to trim it up. But again, I'm someone, call me, a boomer, call me old school, whatever. I'm someone that likes the differences between the two. I don't want them all to be the same. And there are some rules that I do prefer better in the NFL, and there are other rules I prefer that I think it's better in college football.
Sure.
But when you average them all out, I like the finished product of seeing something that's different on Saturdays as opposed to what you're going to see on Sundays. And I can love both of them. Like most of America, I love my football weekends. I love college. I love the NFL. And I love the fact that they're different. I don't need it to be closer to the same between the two sports and have every rule be exactly the same. I just don't need that. I don't think either sport needs that.
I just think it's funny that Division III was the pushback.
And if the argument is we're going to bring in new fans because our games are going to be 8 minutes quicker
7
or whatever.
plays less.
I mean, I get that argument with baseball that is aging out in Major League Baseball to an extent. So shrinking the games, that may entice new fans to join. But we know tons of college football fans. We're two of them. Does any diehard college football fan ever complain and say, these games are just way too long? We only get 12 of them every year. That's all you're guaranteed, but they're way too long. I don't think the diehard fans care as much as probably television networks care because they want a schedule that's tighter.
So it's reducing by 7 plays. On average, there are 180 plays per game in college football, 155 in the NFL. But the NFL has structured it through their TV partners to where it is if they're over by a minute, they're trying to reduce it if possible. The 180 to 155, reducing it by 7, I mean, maybe you're saving TV time, yes, but I'm with you. The diehard college football fan is tuned in to that game or the big game that week, big noon kickoff, right? I'm watching that to begin my Saturday. And it's the game of the week, so that's why I'm invested. It's more about the separation of the score. If it's a close game, I'm watching it. I don't care how long the game goes.
Yeah, and again, the one I threw this out to a group text that I have with a bunch of SEC college football fans, and my initial thought was I hate this because it's just trying to make the game more like the NFL, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's not because I don't like the NFL. I just like celebrating the differences between the two. And a buddy of mine brought up a good point that said, well, it's going to put the teams that naturally play really fast, like a Tennessee as an example, at an advantage over an Iowa or another team that is used to, if it's close late, they have to rely on the clock stopping.
But with Iowa, it's always
on
close
a timeout. Late. Well, yeah. Well, it's not even close late. It's low scoring late is the only way they're going to have a chance.
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, and again, is it going to be that big of a factor? I don't think so. Maybe we'll find out that it is. But either way, I don't think that's a good enough reason to compel the NCAA to make this change. Therefore, I don't like it.
Chad, the NFL.
I'm curious, by the way, to get Barrett Sallee's take on this also.
Yeah, and that's
and
coming
what he
up
thinks.
in a handful of minutes. The NFL has suspended today 5 players, including 4 Detroit Lions, for gambling. And 3 of the players of the 5 suspended today, suspended indefinitely, but at least for the 2023 season. C.J. Moore, Quintus Cephas, and those are the Lions players. And then the Commanders, Shaka Toney, they're suspended at least the year. Moore and Cephas from the Lions released immediately after this was announced with the suspension from the league. Jamison Williams is also among those of the Lions who has been suspended, but for 6 games, along with Stanley Berryhill. 6 games, not the season, because they were betting on the reports college football and not the NFL, which the other 3 were. College football, and they were doing it at either a team facility or on a team bus on the road as they're landing in, if Detroit's playing in Nashville, they're landing at B&A on a team bus going to the hotel, and they're on a sports app because it's legal in Tennessee, betting on college football that day on that Saturday. And they're suspended 6 games for that. I get betting on the league, but betting in general is so far hypocritical of what the NFL is now doing. after years and years of couldn't even mention the word gambling. And now we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. Now we have every sports app in the world trying to advertise and connect themselves with the National Football League. But you can't even bet on, a game that, may be connected to their college team, maybe not, but is not connected to their league. And I just don't understand the rules of why that's the case when the league has completely turned 180 degrees on its stance of gambling in general and the support for it, because the money's coming in. And a 23-year-old who wants to download, DraftKings and have the app, I don't know why they can't do that.
Hutton, we have once again reached the point where a technicality blinds someone away from common sense. And this is a big pet peeve of mine in many, many walks of life. Technicalities exist, okay? There are technical things about rules, laws, everything. But there's also a time to just slap someone on the wrist and say, just now don't do that again. Even though it's legal when you're not at a team facility, don't do it at a team facility. Give me an example. Last night I'm coaching 8U softball. During the game, I might tell the girls to run. If they don't run immediately, just say one word, run, or I point towards first base. Because sometimes these little girls, they'll hit the ball and they'll think it's foul, or they'll be stunned, they hit it, and they won't run immediately. So I give them a little nudge to drop the bat and run. Now, technically, it is a technicality in the rule book that me as the pitcher, as the coach pitcher of the game, I can't coach the base runners during the game. So
you cheater.
I'm not a cheater. I do not cheat in 8U softball. But coaching the runners to go from first to second or second to third, I understand why that rule exists and why you wouldn't want your pitcher running from base to base, telling the girls what to do in the game. So technically, I'm in violation of the rule by simply saying one word, run, or just pointing to a base. Do I need to get warned by the umpire for saying run when I'm not coaching the other bases? Do I need to get thrown out of a game because of a technicality? No. Let common sense take over. If you see something, say something. Hutton thought he saw a pipe bomb downtown. It wasn't. It was some electrical wire. Yep. But he saw something and he said something.
Sleepy Danny left it.
And we all could have been safer because of that. But this is one where, come on. Well, betting on college football that's even allowed, and because it happened on a team bus or in the facility on their phone while it happened, 6 games.
At the hotel, whatever.
Seems awfully extreme.
The gambling policy for players, anyone in the league, it prohibits anyone in the NFL from engaging in any form of gambling in any club or league facility or venue, including the practice facility. Meaning a player can't sit at his locker if you could have the app and place a legal bet in your state. And you can't gamble on anything while you're sitting at your locker. I just don't understand that. When you can leave the facility and do it, you can't do it at your locker.
Also, how is the first violation a 6-game suspension?
And by the way, I'm not endorsing gambling on the league. I understand why the NFL has a policy for that, period.
You got to uphold the integrity of the league and the sport.
It doesn't matter that Jamison Williams was betting on college football or hockey or the NBA playoffs. He just can't do it while he's sitting at his locker at the team facility for the Detroit Lions or on a team bus whenever the Lions land on a road trip for the Sunday noon kickoff the Saturday prior. It's stupid to me. But it's a blanket rule to where they don't want the idea, the perception in any way that inside information is being used for financial gain of anyone associated with the NFL. The financial gain is only, by the way, coming through the endorsements where the league and the owners are at a windfall.
We've got someone in the YouTube chat right now saying they could have just said, hey, don't do it again. Here's a 2-game suspension. Or just said, hey, here's a fine. Don't do it again. Why does that have to be a 6-game suspension on the first violation? That's awfully punitive. For doing something that otherwise is legal, but because you bet on your mobile device at the facility, it's 6 games when you could have done it at home legally? How is that? Well, why is there not a layer to it of it's a fine the first time or a warning, and then if you do it again, it's a 2-game suspension. Then if you do it again, it's a half a season suspension, so on and so forth. 6 games right away? I mean, how is
Chad,
that fair?
DeAndre Hopkins was suspended 6 games last season for the Arizona Cardinals for failing a performance-enhancing drug test, which he denies that he did anything nefarious, but he took that suspension because
the message here is take roids.
Well,
if you can get away with it, it's if you don't, it's only 6 games. The same as betting on a college football game on a team bus.
Yeah, you can't bet on the Vols or the Crimson Tide, and it's treated the same way. Or the Islanders. I don't understand how that is parallel to betting on like what Calvin Ridley did, including the Falcons or teams in a parlay. I understand the stance on that, but not in regards to the 6-game suspensions for the 2 players here.
As someone else asked in the YouTube chat, are NFL players allowed to go to Vegas and play poker? Of course.
Yeah.
They're allowed to do that. That's completely legal. It's betting on sports, specifically the NFL, you can't do. Betting on sports now is legal. The rule that Jameson Williams specifically violated was he did something otherwise legal, but he did it at the team facility. And because he did it at the team facility, it's a 6-game suspension.
Any form of gambling.
That's crazy. I can understand warning them and saying, hey, you may have not known this rule. You can never do this on NFL property. Here's a fine. Or here's a warning. Don't do it again. Not you're suspended for 6 games. Just ridiculous for him and the Lions.
And they're also sending a message by the 6-game suspension because they're saying we're going to figure out if you did this and when you did it.
That's the message being sent. The other message is we're not going to be the NBA. We're not going to have a Tim Donaghy here.
That's
if I'm looking at this from NFL perspective, they're going to be very heavy-handed with this because the last thing they want is for the integrity of their league to be challenged, similar to the way the NBA's integrity is challenged because of past scandal.
We will talk NBA playoffs and more throughout the show, but when we come back, college football and the draft, the top of the draft, the quarterbacks that we've seen have great success at collegiately, now being scrutinized and falling down draft boards. We'll ask Barrett Salih's opinion on that. That's next on Hot Mic.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number 1 pet peeve, telemarketers. Number 2 pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number 3 pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number 4 pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up. Quit littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that.
I believe in it.
Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Sixth and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hutton and Withrow for Hot Mic across the OutKick Network, joined by Barrett Salee. Barrett, all of a sudden, C.J. Stroud sucks. What happened in the build-up to the NFL draft?
What'd you do, Barrett? What'd you do?
Well, I mean, I've always been of the belief, guys, that the 5-month-long NFL draft process is about 4 hours or 4 months and 20 days too long. Wherever you started in mid-January is where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
Look, C.J. Stroud is amazing. He's a first-round draft pick. He should be the top overall pick. He's incredible. At this time of year, it's probably just posturing.
But throughout his career, the last 2 years, I don't recall, but we had Bobby Carpenter on yesterday or 2 days ago, and I was like, I don't recall hearing any negativity with leadership, off the field things, and all of a sudden now it's about the cognitive test and whether or not it was the talent around him instead of him actually stepping up and making plays. I just don't get how we end up on that path with him.
Overthinking everything. NFL scouts try to outthink the room. And there's posturing too. Agents try to get players in different spots, advantageous teams, things like that. But I don't know about you guys, but I do remember Bryce Young during his Heisman Trophy season. He had a pretty good receiving corps led by some guy named Jameson Williams, who is in the news for the wrong reasons today. But
yeah.
I mean, that if you're going to talk C.J. Stroud and him being a product of the talent around him, doesn't Bryce Young's Heisman season, can't you say the same thing about that?
Well, and how much are we even looking at production? And I think about this with Hendon Hooker, who was just super productive. But the reason he's productive, the NFL scouts or pundits will tell you, well, it's because the offense.
The system.
Doesn't have as much to do with him. It's about the system. and all of that. And I'm thinking, I mean, what if you're not just looking at the raw materials, right, of the quarterback and what you see when you watch them, separate of everyone around them, separate of their offensive line, the receivers catching the passes, everything else. If you're not looking at that, what are you looking at? And to me, the best measure of a player is watching what they did in a team sport against other teams with their college football team. Am I wrong in how to evaluate these players?
No, you're 100% right. I mean, Stetson Bennett, I'm doing a story on Monday ranking the top 32 players based on their college football production. Stetson Bennett's going to be number one. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and tell you.
Of course.
He won 2 national championships. I mean, look, what are we looking at? What are scouts looking at? I don't know. Anthony Richardson's going to be a first-round draft pick. So, look, I think a lot of these folks are trying to recreate the next Josh Allen. I guess that's part of it. But no, if we're going to go off production, I think with Hendon Hooker, you need to be complimentary of his production. He should be higher up on that draft board because of his production. Yeah, the injury thing's there. I get that. But no, I mean, the whole draft process is just stupid. I mean, at this point, if you're really trying to sell Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, then you are trying to outthink the room and prove you're the smartest person in the room. And that's what, generally speaking, that's what NFL scouts like to try to do. I mean, that's what they did with Mitch Trubisky, and see how that turned out.
And let's kind of go back to the raw materials versus production, because I think Will Levis, who you just mentioned, is a great example of this. I mean, I see the arm strength, and I see the size, and I see what scouts would like about him as a quarterback, and I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's a bad player at all, but I also don't think he's a top 10 player in the draft or a top 10, worthy pick at quarterback. But Barrett, it's amazing to hear the amount of excuses people will make for Will Levis. When Mel Kiper's going on TV and saying, well, you lose by 7 or 40, what does it matter with all those interceptions against that Tennessee secondary that wasn't even any good, that picked him off a bunch. They're getting blown out anyways. The offensive line was bad. Receiving options were bad. He lost his offensive coordinator. And I'm thinking, have we gone to any greater lengths to make excuses for a quarterback in recent years than we have Will Levis?
No, maybe Anthony Richardson this year, but I mean, last time I checked, you don't get to pick your offensive coordinator if you're a first-round draft pick. You don't get to pick your head coach if you're a first-round draft pick. So sure, I mean, you say, all right, well, Liam Cohen left and Will Levis struggled his last season in college because of that. Okay, how do you not? What makes you think that he's going to get in the right spot at the NFL level? So no, I mean, Will Levis, in terms of people making excuses for him, 100%. It's annoying. All it is, guys. And I joked about people trying to recreate Josh Allen. Like literally, that's what it is with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. They see their attributes. They see that, okay, maybe they didn't have as great a college careers, like Allen didn't have a great college career at Wyoming, and suddenly these guys are gonna burst into superstars and lead teams to the playoffs on an annual basis. It is. Sometimes NFL teams get, sort of blinded by shiny objects, and a lot of times it comes back to bite them.
Barrett Sallee with us, CBS Sports college football analyst, Sirius XM as well. That we discussed just prior to you joining us, Barrett, the rule change for college football, the not stopping the clock after a first down. Why now? I mean, it's not like the time of a game, the length of a game, it didn't just crop up this past off season. Why was it this time and this go around that they're changing that rule for the first time in half a century?
Well, first of all, I mean, I like the fact that college football is different. I like the old clock rules, I guess what we call it now.
Preach on.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, but I think really what this is all about, guys, is it's the new TV deals. All of this is tied to money, right? And look, I'm a college football fan. I don't necessarily love watching the NFL games. I'm busy on Sundays anyway, so I have them on in the background. But the one thing the NFL, well, they do a lot of things good, but one thing the NFL does great is making sure you fit into a TV window, right? So if you're ESPN, if you're CBS, if you're Fox, if you're Apple, whatever, you're going to be looking at your product going, all right, we're trying to sell all these commercials, but we're waiting too long between commercial breaks, and they go way too long, and we're forced to, change inventory and have, payments beyond, what happens and what the contracts for these TV networks are. So I think it's mostly just about what the networks want. They want a nice, clean, tidy product. And because of that, you're getting more NFL style rules implemented. I would not be surprised in the least bit to see, some sort of replay rule instituted in the next couple of years. I think the one rule that's passed today about implementing, penalties that happen at the end of the first and third quarters at the start of the second or fourth quarters, 100% tied to TV as well. You don't want to sit around and play an untimed down if you're ESPN. It's just a waste of time. So I think it's all tied to money. So let's not try to make things, complicated. It's Occam's razor, right? Sometimes the logical answer is the right one.
Got to have that marching band, though, for 30 minutes.
Well, and that's what I want to ask about. And by the way, preach on about celebrating the differences between college and NFL.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. Hutton and I have long argued that if you want to shrink the games for TV purposes, then make the halftime short like it is in the NFL and cut out the long marching band performances at halftime. You are a college football loyalist and purist, Barrett. So what say you about the seriousness of college bands and how important that is for halftime performances? I always see the band from a pregame and in-game perspective and don't care at all about halftime, but it seems to be very important to them.
Well, I'm okay with it, but not 20 minutes, right? Like you can fit the home and away band performance in 15 minutes, 16 minutes, whatever, right? It's not going to be the 12 of the NFL, but it doesn't need to be 20. And I think part of that does lead to the in-house experience. If you're a student at the school that's in the band, you want to perform for your fellow students. So, and they're all there at the game anyway. So I'm honestly okay with the band still playing. It doesn't need to be a 20-minute halftime. You can reduce that a little bit. And yeah, that would definitely help out the kind of structure of the TV window that they're trying to fit college football in. And guys, I still think I'll say this to no end. I will preach this until I will speak it into existence. If they would just follow the golf /NASCAR /soccer rule after scores, where you pull up a picture-in-picture, you run a beer ad, you run a cell phone ad, whatever, while the team is teeing up the football and getting ready to kick off, and run the kickoff with picture-in-picture, you're going to be fine. Kickoffs are useless now anyway. And if for whatever reason somebody runs it back for a touchdown, it's really easy to see it in a small screen, and it's really easy to run a replay. If you cut out the commercial breaks, I'm not saying like the commercial kick, commercial play thing, just cut out the commercial breaks after a touchdown, extra point, safety, whatever, and run picture-in-picture commercials. That would knock off so much time, and it would tidy things up in a way that I think a lot of these networks really hope. The problem is you're sitting there, you're asking them to say, okay, well, T-Mobile, you're going to get a side-by-side with a kickoff next to it. How much does that value decrease? Okay, you can wrangle that. I mean, you can negotiate a price that is reasonable. If you do something like that,
by the way, I could argue that price should increase with what you're saying right now,
because people are going to the fridge.
Yes, I also think that you're going to hear the ad for sure, because you're going to be watching the picture-in-picture of the next thing. So you're actually paying more attention to the ad than getting up and leaving during a commercial break.
Even if you don't know you're paying attention to it, you're paying attention to it.
Barrett Sallee with us on OutKick.
That's a great point.
What is the ceiling for Deion Sanders at Colorado? I say this thinking I know what it is, right? Like competitive in the conference, and knowing that with the expansion and the college football playoff and the possibility that he could get in based on the recruits he's getting, where can he take the program? I remember, the headlines of ESPN's airing the spring game live because it's prime. It has nothing to do with anything other than Deion. And just knowing that and the value of his brand, where can he take the program, Barrett?
He can take him to the college football playoff. And I know that sounds preposterous, just on the surface. But think about this, guys. USC, UCLA leaving the Pac-12, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if the Pac-12 expands, it's not going to be anybody difficult. If Deion is able to bring Colorado to a point where they get to a Pac-12 championship game and win the Pac-12 championship game, do you think they're going to be one of the top 6 conference champions? Because I do. And at that point, you get a spot in the college football playoff. Now, can they win it? No. Could they win a first-round game? Probably not. But in the new age of the college football playoff, they absolutely can make it, because, like I said, the Pac-12 still going to be pretty solid as long as Washington and Oregon are there. And if Colorado is able to, go through that and, win a conference title with a loss, 2 losses even, they're going to be one of the top 6 conference champions, which means they get to the playoffs. So in the current format, no, they would never sniff the playoff. But in a couple of years, yeah, they might be a Pac-12 championship team. And if you're a Pac-12 championship team, you have a really good shot of getting into the playoff in the future, not necessarily right now.
As we sit here in April, July 4th it seems far away, but the last 2 Independence Days, we've seen conference realignment be the topic across the sports talk. And, they're really shaking things up on the college football landscape. If you're the Big 12 in a sport that is kill or be killed, I had the Big 12 dead to rights when the news broke 2 years ago that Texas and Oklahoma were bouncing for the SEC. And now they are looked at as a survivor, and the Pac-12 is the opposite. Does the Big 12 automatically go ahead and add Colorado? Is that the idea? And if not, how long do you wait?
Well, if Deion's there, yeah. And you take a short-term gamble if you're the Big 12, 100%. I still think the Big 12, they're going to be the aggressor, obviously. And with the 4 new teams coming in this year, think about this, guys. If they're able to go ahead and get Washington and Oregon, okay, let's just throw the Arizona schools out for right now. If they're able to go get Washington, Oregon, Colorado, and Utah, right? They have a straight line from UCF in Orlando all the way through the country to the Pacific Northwest. And they have the Central Plains and the South, all that stuff. That's a really, really good brand. It's not the SEC or the Big Ten. That's a really big brand and a really good way to sell yourself to TV partners, not necessarily during this contract because there's so many moving parts, but the next one and the one after that. So yeah, I mean, look, I thought the Big 12 was dead to rights when Texas and Oklahoma announced they were leaving. You guys, I've known you guys forever. I think we all thought the same thing 12 years ago when the first wave of realignment happened. But yeah, they find themselves as a little bit of an aggressor now. And honestly, I think the reason for that is really due in no part to what the Big 12 has done. It's because of Larry Scott and the Pac-12 with the Pac-12 networks and that horrible, disaster that those networks are, with the Pac-12 owning them outright, and the fact that USC has been, out of the spotlight. The Pac-12 opened the door for anybody to walk through, and the Big 12 absolutely did.
Wouldn't Missouri make more sense than the Big Ten? I know this isn't a possibility, but I'm just looking at it and everything about the school and geographically, I feel like that's a Big Ten school, not an SEC school.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, I never felt it fit in the Big 12, so fitting in the SEC doesn't really work either. But yeah, I mean, it feels like a Big Ten school. That's a very good school academically. The Big Ten, in theory, values that, although I think that might change once they start seeing that paychecks. Maybe the value of being an AAU team or AAU school, I should say, doesn't necessarily have the same weight. But I mean, yeah, Missouri has never felt SEC. It honestly never felt Big 12 to me either. And yeah, it seems more comfortable and more appropriately placed in the Big Ten. It'll never happen because they're never going to willingly leave the SEC. But it's never felt normal for Missouri.
Another ceiling question for you. What's the ceiling for Auburn under Hugh Freeze in year 1 with what he can possibly do for that offense that never clicked under Brian Harsin?
Honestly, and this is going to sound crazy too, it's 9-3. And I think part of that is the schedule, right? They get Vandy as their rotator. They get Cal as their out-of-conference game. They get Georgia and Alabama at home. So when you're talking about an Auburn schedule, this is about as good as it can possibly get. So there's that factor. The other factor is Hugh Freeze. You mentioned it. He did a great job at Ole Miss with mobile quarterbacks and picking out 2 or 3 or 4 things they do well and leaning into that. Like Bo Wallace and Chad Kelly are perfect examples of that. So is that quarterback on campus now? I don't know, but Robbie Ashford can run. We know that. He did not necessarily look like a college passer or a competent college passer, but, Hugh's there. That's kind of what he does. But I don't think it's any secret that Hugh was dabbling in the portal last window. And to be honest, guys, he had a quarterback. He had a very good quarterback on the hook, and through no fault of his own, that didn't materialize. And it really had nothing to do with Auburn, nothing to do with Hugh Freeze. It just didn't work out from the players' end. So I think, if they go out in the portal now, there's not really anybody of note in there right now from a quarterback standpoint, but there might be later. if he gets that guy, then they can be 9-3. If they're stuck with Ashford, okay, maybe 8-4, but they still can be really competitive.
Bear, are you buying the rumors that Alabama is looking around the transfer portal for a quarterback after their spring competition with Milroe and with Ty Simpson? And if so, shouldn't they just go get Spencer Sanders or Walker Howard straight from Ole Miss, since all of those guys can't possibly play?
Well, it's Lane. Maybe they can. I'm sure if there's anybody that can find a way, he can. No, I think, they're going to be dabbling in the portal. Their A-Day rosters just came out today, and Jalen Milroe is running with the ones. He doesn't fit what Tommy Rees wants to do. And Ty Simpson does. He's a, stretch the field, accuracy deep downfield, pretty standard quarterback. And that's what Tommy Rees has used at Notre Dame. And if he's not with the ones, then those rumors that I think we've all heard about, the quarterbacks kind of struggling in spring practice probably are true. And so, I would think they'd go out and get a quarterback. They probably already have behind the scenes been tampering a little bit, because everybody tampers. That's not a slight against Alabama. That's just the reality of the sport right now. So, I think they will go out and get a quarterback, depending on who it is. Then, they might still be able to win a national championship or make the college football playoff, because there's talent all around them. But I don't think they're comfortable with the two guys they have right now.
I feel like we've undersold that a bit, with Bryce Young leaving. The spotlight last weekend was on Ohio State with 75,000, seeing, the new prospects take over after C.J. Stroud. And now it's just kind of like, Alabama's going to hit the portal. And I'm thinking, man, but I haven't even thought about the fact that they're not happy with the group they have, given the fact that they haven't been the headline for that.
Yeah, well, I think we'll probably get a lot of that if they struggle this weekend. And I mean, from what I'm hearing, and I know you guys are as well, things are not necessarily going like Nick Saban hoped they'd go during spring practice from the quarterback.
And with Milroe running with the ones, I mean, that to me is a sign that things are not going well.
Yeah, he doesn't fit Tommy Rees at all.
Barrett, great stuff, man, as always. Always appreciate the chat and the chance to talk a little college football from time to time. And I mean, let's face it, it's always in season.
Especially down here, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Barrett.
CBS Sports, great work there, and of course on Sirius XM as well. Great perspective, and a great point that he made on the Big 12 and the line of the brand they could build. Because I think the perception would be Washington and Oregon is Big 10, right? That's at least my mind on the surface level. If things were to really shake up for the Pac-12, how it would look. But if you think about it from the Big 12's perspective, from Florida all the way to Washington, that's interesting for TV contracts.
Yeah, and I'm really interested. If we clip anything from that interview and put out there, I want to clip what he had to say about commercials during the game. I think it's brilliant. It's not something I think about with football, but I see it with racing sports and other sports, and I think golf does it all the time, and it's smart. Because I'm actually paying attention more to the ads at that point, because I'm still watching the live sporting event than I would during a commercial break. So why not for football when they're kicking off instead of going to break after that? That could save you a good amount of time over the course of an entire game. I love that plan from him.
Ryan Leaf will be joining us later in today's show. So will Sam Amico. We'll talk NBA playoffs, headlines, and more. When we come back, we open the show discussing NFL suspensions. There's a big one in Major League Baseball as well. That's next on Hot Mic.
Last thing, did you know that a fan, there's always the same guys. A fan is suing Bradley Beal of the Wizards. A fan is asking for damages in excess of $50,000. According to the report, this guy, his name, it's unbelievable. His name is Kyler Briffa. He's from Orange County, Florida. Now listen to this. Beal was headed to the locker room when a friend of Briffa's said, "You made me lose $1,300, you F." Briffa apparently was the guy that Beal thought said it. Beal said, "When you disrespect me, I'm going to press you about it. Do you think this is a joke? Do you think this is a joke? Do you think this is a joke? Do you think this is a joke?" because when I press you about it, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Apparently, Bradley Beal repeats himself. All right? Somehow this is a complaint by this guy. Now, I don't know what the problem is. He addressed the incident. No one wants to lose money. I get it. If you keep it about sports, I'm all for it. But I think it's when people start getting personal, talking about your family, talking about your character, your integrity towards the game. I think all that, we can save it. We can really keep those comments to ourselves. Yeah, well, that ain't happening. So look, I got to tell you. Then what happened is this. Listen to this. Beal turned around and hit Briffa on the side of the head, knocking his hat off. Well, you can't hit people. Just pay the $50,000 and move along. If you did it, if it's on video, pay the $50,000 and away you go. But you can't be walking off the court hitting people. And when did NBA players become so sensitive? I walked on a court at Michigan State and 12,600 people chanted literally, "We hate Dockage." Hate is what they said. Not dislike, not don't like, or you suck. They hate. Not one thing was done about it. I didn't whine about it. Stood up, waved. I mean, what are you going to do? The next game at Purdue, the paint crew chanted, "We love Dockage." When did everybody get so sad? Well, you'll make it personal. Of course it's personal. Sports is personal, you idiots. Well, you don't talk about my family. I'll give you that. You don't talk about the integrity of the game. Shut up. Shut up. If you want to talk about the integrity of the game, don't promote Draymond Green dancing around like a complete clown in the middle of a court after getting ejected. If you want to talk about the integrity of the game, how about you don't wear hats on the sideline when you're not playing? Yeah, seriously.
Glad you're with us as we broadcast live. Hot Mic, 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. If you're watching live on YouTube, I hope you subscribe to the OutKick channel. Chad, Max Scherzer suspended 10 games for sticky substance.
You do not want a sticky substance anywhere on or around your person. If you were a Major League Baseball player, you will get popped.
He is checked coming off the mound in the 3rd inning. As he describes it, he has someone watching him as he takes alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and washes his hands, then uses rosin and sweat to get the sticky substance or whatever he wants back on, his hands.
So he starts with washing his hands with alcohol.
They're monitoring
Part
this.
of the process, yeah.
And then he just goes about his normal process. And then he comes back out for the 4th, and Phil Cuzzy throws him out. It says that your hands, it's not good. It's still
coming
way
out
too
to the
sticky.
mound. Is
back out to the 4th, and Scherzer admitted, he's like, I would be an idiot to come back out in the 4th, knowing what they were saying I was being warned for as I left in the 3rd when they checked me. So I understand his frustration there. If they're monitoring him in the 3rd behind the dugout, beneath the dugout, and he comes back out for the 4th, and they're all eyes on Scherzer, and they still throw him out, and now he's suspended 10 games. It's a very vague observation. And I do think in some cases, sure. The umpire and the pitcher, it can become personal, and it's only the pitcher that's having to go through it. No one else on the field is having to be checked and, the hat and all that stuff. So while,
it certainly would be dumb of Scherzer.
He's not denying that his hand was sticky. He's saying that they watched the process of how I made it that way.
And then they went right back out there and said, yeah, that whatever your process is, it's too sticky.
Yes. So they're reviewing it. They stand by the suspension, but they also, I'm not going to be surprised if they reduce it. 10 games seems steep based on if that's all accurate, based on what Scherzer has
Someone
said.
have to come to his defense that was watching the process, I think, and be very compelling with it to show exactly what was going on. But yeah,
he was required to make an equipment change, and he did.
We've dealt today with 2 stories of leagues being overly punitive on something they shouldn't. The Jameson Williams gambling deal, where he's gambling on college football, but it happens to be at a league facility. Therefore, it's a 6-game suspension. And now the 10-game suspension for where Max Scherzer saying they watched my entire process and then suspended me because they said my hand was too sticky.
So his quote, I'm in front of the MLB official that's underneath or near the dugout. I wash my hand with alcohol in front of the official. I then apply rosin, and then I grab sweat. I then go back out there, and Phil Cuzzy says my hand is too sticky.
I would love to interview one of the Major League Baseball officials that's job is to watch the process of pitchers get their hands ready to go pitch.
Well, but Scott Boras' agent, his quote was funny too. He's like, the Cuzzy on-field spectrometer is not the answer on how we're going to judge this one way or the other.
We don't have enough of the guys going over the top.
I know, yeah.
Like throwing their shirt open and like flipping their pants down and being all demonstrative with it when they're doing that's gone away. We need more of that. Like guys making a joke out of it,
just
like
undressing.
Put hands up. They like bend over on the mound like they're getting patted down for a weapon. We need more of that. I want someone to get down on all fours on the pitching mound and then get patted down by the umpire.
How does this affect
on the ground? Nose on the dirt, nose in the dirt, and you're just down.
You're a big Braves fan.
Yeah.
The Mets already have an injury-riddled rotation.
Mets and the Braves are both 8-2 over their last 10. I saw. So there's a little. It's very early. There's a little separation with those two at the top of the East right now because the Phillies are off to a terrible start. Marlins are in 3rd right now. So it'll all. It's a long summer. It'll balance itself out as it goes around. Yeah, it's the Orioles month.
It is.
It's the official Baltimore Orioles month.
It's a winning month in Baltimore.
That's right.
Hey, the Kurt Schilling Baseball Show is where you can find more discussion on all things Major League Baseball. New episodes available every Tuesday and Friday. That means you can go online right now at outkick.com and check out the new episode of the Kurt Schilling Baseball Show.
He will give you all of the sticky substance information.
He's been very
you
critical
need to know.
of this process and how they judge this.
He knows all about the sticky substances. Not because he uses them, but because he knows about the pitchers and what they do.
But the the idea that it is umpire to umpire that's checking for this, and it's based on if they believe it's too sticky.
This is one where we need a better technicality.
I would think so.
To go against what I was saying earlier. We need technicalities on this one.
The FBI, they're taking a peek at KU. We'll lead with that next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in the land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here on this Friday edition. Sam Amico will join us on Hot Mic across the OutKick network. We'll talk NBA playoff headlines and the lack of the ejection or suspension for Joel Embiid and the kick last night. We'll get into all of that straight ahead. Plus, Ryan Leaf on today's show. That's coming up in about an hour and a half from now. Chad, you were saying during the break that Will Ferrell's coming back with a show that is interesting based on the headlines of professional golf right now.
I mean, I want to bathe in this story. I mean, like Will Levis bathes his coffee with mayonnaise, and maybe he bathes in mayonnaise also. Who knows? We'll have to leave it up to the teams that interview him to figure that out. I don't know. But this story, this is from Front Office Sports. Will Ferrell will start a new golf comedy series per Deadline following a, quote, controversial new league competing with the PGA Tour. It will have a similar tone to Talladega Nights. Sign me up. This will be incredible. If it's anything like Talladega Nights, Semi-Pro, other Will Ferrell sports movies, Blades of Glory, I love all of them. They're hilarious in their own right, and this will be no different. And it's not a movie, it's a series. So I'm excited to see it, Hudden.
Chad, I'm all in on this. And
will you bathe in it with me? This news of the story.
I wish it were a movie and not a series.
I'm excited that it's a series. I'm the opposite. I get more excited now when I hear. I'm not that excited about movies anymore.
Well, that's why I want it to be a movie.
It's crazy though. But when I hear like a really good idea,
movies suck now.
And I think, man, that one's got legs. Like if it's a movie, if it's original content, that's a great concept or a bit. I'm like, that should be a series because you can lengthen it out. Now, when it's like Killers of the Flower Moon that's based on a novel, that's a movie. Like I hear that, I'm like, okay, make a movie about this and not a series. So when I hear this Will Ferrell idea, I think series. But it would be good as either. I think this could be a really funny hour and 35-minute comedy that's a movie, or it can be a really funny 25 to 30-minute episode, 8-episode season.
Like Righteous Gemstones.
And then if it's good, like Righteous Gemstones or anything else, Eastbound and Down, then you order it for a season 2, and you can continue it on. But you shoot it and do it in a way that it could be another season or it could be the end after one season.
Chad, Tennessee's currently going through the NCAA inquiry, right? They
have adjourned. They have left town. Yeah, they left yesterday. They were supposed to come back today, but they did not.
Different feeling when the FBI's knocking on the door, and that's what's happening right now with the Kansas Jayhawks. Billy Preston's the former 5-star recruit, and this all stems from the FBI investigation into Kansas, but the entirety of the Adidas scandal, where the illegal payments were made that were to players in the program through Adidas, and there are other programs implicated through other shoe companies, and Adidas was at the prominent start of that. But Billy Preston on the 30 for 30 podcast, which was also, what was the name of the 30 for 30? Bag Game, I think was the name of the episode, or
it was
Bag Game.
That's it. Yep.
And it goes into the NCAA basketball scandal. Billy Preston, former 5-star recruit. As soon as we got to KU, I'm an Adidas kid now, and I play for KU. And he goes on to mention the reps that KU's the Adidas school. They put us together off of the strength of them being on Adidas school and the fact that they had the type of power where they can be like, yeah, they can tell him, oh, yeah, we want you to get in contact with Billy. We want you to tap into Billy and get that whole process rolling. That's the only thing I'm going to say about that. KU was not a victim in this.
Of course they weren't. Look, this is...
Why is this still going on?
Well, it's... and also, it's just... It's all so ludicrous. And I'm not crucifying Kansas here because they're part of a broader system of pay-for-play for years with shoe companies, the rep schools that they represent, and big-time prospects. So it's nothing new when it comes to Kansas or other ones. And they're getting hit by the FBI. But it's just all so circumspect about what they go after. Like Tennessee's in Cincinnati going through a 2-day trial about recruiting during COVID-19 and having recruiting weekends when they couldn't because of COVID-19, which is seemingly over now. And, they may have given them some cash when they were there. And here you have an FBI investigation into an entire scheme involving a middleman, a bagman per se,
for $89,000.
A shoe company paying a lot more money to basketball. It's just, and what has Kansas faced in all this? Nothing.
They're claiming
they're being investigated by the FBI, but they haven't done anything.
They're pointing and saying this is on Adidas, not on us, the payments.
I mean, great, but my point, like, I don't want to see any of them prosecuted at this point, right? It's just shining a light on a system that we all knew about to some extent for years, and now we can really get into the weeds about the whole process of it. But I just see stories like this, and I'm thinking, and I see the Tennessee hearing, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are we even doing in an NIL era? Why waste any time on past possible rules violations now that players are actually getting paid above the table? It's such a waste of time.
But from the FBI's perspective, this is one of the larger criminal investigations in sports. This was not just on Kansas.
Yeah, this is like money laundering. This is more than just that. I get it.
But the fact that we're still dragging this on, it's like, how long does this need to take?
Well, I don't, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who hate Kansas that would disagree with me, but I don't care to hear about NCAA implications with Kansas. If it's an FBI investigation, fine. I just don't care enough about this, because now if Adidas wanted to sign an NIL deal with Billy Preston and ended up going to Kansas, and part of that was the NIL, he could do it. There's nothing stopping a shoe company from doing that with a player. So it's just much ado about nothing, given the time we're in right now where you can make payments above the table for players to play.
Chad, how is Joel Embiid not ejected after kicking? I mean, it was just blatant. After what we saw with the Warriors and the Kings and Draymond Green, and Joel Embiid with the 76ers is not tossed from the game. I don't understand.
The NBA's got a real kicking problem right now.
Well, I mean, this is just as obvious as what we saw from Draymond.
Yeah, and I think Charles Barkley agreed.
Here's Barkley.
I thought he should have been ejected. I thought that was a flagrant 2. I think his was worse than Draymond's.
Thank you. Worse than Draymond.
Yeah, because he tried to kick a guy in his jump.
Yes.
Just because the guy was a bad shot. I mean, you know what he was trying to do.
I mean, so what's the law?
Yeah, no. Listen. We don't know. Listen, we all have our own opinion. I thought he tried to kick him in his private parts. He should have got ejected.
I mean, I agree with him.
I agree with Barkley on this one, too. If one's a flagrant 2 and an ejection, the other one is, too. I mean, what Draymond Green did was over the top, and he stomped on a guy's chest. But, yeah, Joel Embiid took a swipe at the guy's jump, as Charles Barkley said. It's very obvious in this. Now, Claxton deserved the technical also. I mean, you don't step over a man in that fashion after a dunk and not expect anything to happen. It's not surprising Embiid reacted to me. It's a little excessive that he goes for the full boot to the midsection, as Charles Barkley also said, the private parts in that fashion. It doesn't just shove his leg out of the way or get him out of the way in some way, right? I think back to Scottie Pippen's dunk on Patrick Ewing, where he straddles him and kind of walks over him, and Ewing shoves him, right? Doesn't kick at him, but kind of shoves him out of the way when that happens. I understand that reaction from Embiid, but you can't kick a guy in the junk.
Well, you understand the reaction, but I also know the repercussions of that reaction.
Exactly. If you take a swing that way with your foot, your hand, anything, you should be ejected. It should be a flagrant 2. Flagrant 1. I think they got it right in the technical on Claxton, but it should have been upgraded on Embiid. Now, that was 9-6 at that point in the game. Mm-hmm. Been a big-time ejection very early in a game.
How about the Warriors? That's a big win.
Yeah, my sweep prediction for both series was not accurate.
And it wasn't close last night. The Warriors showed up last night and they said, hey, stop doubting us, at least for that one game.
Would Steve Kerr consider not playing Draymond Green in the next game?
Isn't it interesting?
Why mess with it? Everyone is going to say, do you absolutely play him now that he's – I mean, you just housed them. You did not – you got beaten pretty soundly.
But they were turning
it over. They
turned it over 30 times.
But still, I mean, I'm not playing him until I need him. If you come out and you're getting beat by 15 or you feel like you need a spark, then you go with Draymond Green. But, dude, you cost yourself a game, and we're much better without you in the one game you haven't been here, so sit the bench until we need you.
Yeah, but I don't know at the time of that game, though, that the Kings were going to lose if Draymond doesn't do anything at all either way. I don't think he cost the game by that.
Oh, I'm not saying he cost the game either. I'm just saying mojo. Like, look, we're down 0-2 and didn't look that good, and now we didn't have Draymond Green. We played a slightly different way with him out of the lineup, and we beat him bad. I'm not saying he's going to sit the rest of the series. I'm just saying, why not go back with that lineup until you need Draymond Green in Game 4, given the results of Game 3?
Are you hesitant to stick with the Kings based on last night? Because the Warriors have been awful on the road. That's what's so interesting.
I'm hesitant because the Warriors are champions and the Kings are not. So I'm not. It's tough to just bury them and say they're not going to win the series, but I still like what I've seen from the Kings overall.
And the whole road record thing is odd with them this year.
They've been terrible.
And if this feels like a Game 7 type series too, where they're going to have to break that trend of losing on the road and right up the road against Sacramento.
Can you imagine a Game 7 in that scene in
I
Sacramento? What do we think about the victory beam in Sacramento, how they light that? I got so into that late Saturday night that I recorded it to show everyone else in my house the victory beam the next day when they bring the star player over to light the beam of the game. It's
I
pretty
like
cool.
the uniqueness of the embracing something that you haven't seen, like with the Kings, and you're on the bandwagon, and you're able to find things out like otherwise we wouldn't be watching during the middle of the season, Sacramento games, right? But there will be that's also copying something that's also just very hokey, right? But at the same time, it's very unique. It's not like the flame in Vegas. It's just very manufactured and fake. The eternal whatever.
Yeah. Lighting the cauldron.
For Al Davis or whatever.
It's like the Olympic Games are going on.
I think you can make that look a lot better than what they did. In this case, I mean, it's cheesy but cool because it's the Kings. If this were the Lakers or something, it'd be...
Oh, of course, yeah. I like it because of the Kings, but also like it because it's got a kind of a Japanese game show feel to it. Because someone dies every time they hit the beam. We don't know that. But the MC, the guy that's there, whoever's doing it, all right, now Sacramento, it's time to light that beam. And they all, he goes up, and the players aren't that into it. They kind of just like hit it, and then the crowd goes crazy. But it's amazing, like getting the crowd, into the pressing of a big button. It's nice. I like it.
And meanwhile, that's the toughest
fun
ticket in the NBA right now.
Should be.
Sacramento.
I'd love to be in a game there. Would not love to go to Sacramento. Don't really care about that. But I would like to be in that building.
If not for the Kings, I don't think about Sacramento.
Never thought about visiting Sacramento. Of all the places in California that one might visit at some point on a trip, never said to anyone, let's go check out that state capitol. While we're in the state, let's check out the Capitol. Let's make sure to hit Sacramento on the way.
Sam Amico joins us when we return. We continue with the NBA playoff chat, and so far so good with the first round. Competitive series, drama, trash talk, and more. And speaking of trash talk, the talk between the Grizzlies and the Lakers. We'll get into that and much more straight ahead on Hot Mic.
He tried to kick a guy in his jump.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number 1 pet peeve, telemarketers. Number 2 pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number 3 pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number 4 pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. I believe in it. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back, and if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Glad you're with us from 6th and Peabody with Ehan Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, Hutton and Withrow. And great to have a familiar face back on the show. Sam Amico joins us. Hoopswire is where you can find him and the solid, always solid NBA coverage. Sam, great to have you back, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be here. I haven't seen you guys. Well, I've seen you. You just haven't seen me very often. But here we are now together.
Here we are.
It's much better for us to see you than for you to see us. So with the pleasure's all on this end of the camera right now. So thank you.
Sam, so is it best for the NBA, hear me out here, for them to see the Lakers and Warriors advance, or some version of the Grizzlies and Kings win one of these series to build up younger stars instead of the same process playing out in the postseason?
The NBA will probably tell you they don't care, but the reality is they're going to want either the Lakers or the Warriors in one of these series, just because.
And probably both.
Preferably both. And the Phoenix Suns with Kevin Durant. I mean, that's just what the ratings are going to, that's just the way they're going to play out the best way they can. Kings and Grizzlies are a great story. They're the up and coming teams, but, they don't have that tradition that a Lakers and Warriors do, and, some of those other squads. So, as far as the NBA is concerned, they have no rooting interest, but behind the scenes, they're rooting for the Lakers, the Warriors, the Suns, and they don't really care who wins the Nuggets Timberwolves series in the West, because they don't care to see either of them. But the reality is, these teams are getting older, right? The Lakers, the Warriors, they're LeBron James is 38. He's not going to carry a team anymore. That's clearly Anthony Davis's team, and he can't stay healthy a lot of times, even though he's, early 30s. He's more like a 42-year-old when it comes to injuries and his
Steph is
past.
35.
So,
that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, right. And that's just a matter of it's guys getting older, and the NBA is going to have to replace these stars somehow, some way in these huge markets. And it always says it loves parity, but when it comes right down to it, on the biggest stage, you want the traditional power.
And I know Memphis obviously is not a huge market, but Ja Morant is a huge star and could be a bigger star. How troubling are his issues this past really year and a half been to the NBA in terms, Sam, of cultivating that next generation of superstars in the league?
Yeah, it was kind of stunning when you think about Morant, who's never had any issues before this season, and just some weird stuff, with him being in a club with a firearm and waving it around on Instagram, and then this stuff that happened over the summer where he supposedly got into a fight in a pickup game with an underage kid. That kind of stuff. He's really not. He doesn't have a reputation as a troublemaker, but because of these incidents, the NBA had to investigate, suspend him, and look, sometimes guys get into trouble early in their career in any sport, because I know if I were 21, 22 years old and somebody was throwing all this money at me, I might be in some trouble at that point. I got in trouble at that point in life sometimes without money, never with the law, but I wasn't on as big of a stage. So I think that we all realize, sometimes guys mature at a different pace, and frankly, if he keeps his nose clean for the rest of his career, nobody will even remember any of this, because he's such a dynamic talent and really has always been very friendly with the media and really good with the fans. And I think he'll be just fine as a face of the league, provided he keeps his nose clean moving forward. And really, you look at all the young players today, there's really not too many issues going on in the NBA anymore. So that's the good news for the league.
Well, and the Grizzlies have had a head start on the Kings with some past playoff experience. But between those two, because you mentioned them earlier, Kings and Grizzlies, good stories for the league, nice upstart organizations. But Sam, which one is more legit in terms of being a threat in the Western Conference right now, Kings or Grizzlies?
That's a tough call. I think they're pretty much neck and neck. I would say probably the Grizzlies at this point. They've been to the playoffs before. They were there last year. The Kings really are a new program, so to speak, with Mike Brown really kind of he changed his coaching style entirely. He used to be a defensive, grinded out type of coach. And now the Kings led the NBA in scoring and scored more points than anybody since the 83-84 Denver Nuggets. So Mike Brown changed his philosophy entirely and has had great success with the Kings. But you look at it, the Grizzlies really probably their stars are a little bit better. Morant's probably a little bit better than De'Aaron Fox, the Kings point guard. And the Grizzlies front court's probably a little better. The Grizzlies are definitely a little more tougher, a little more built for the playoffs because they're so defensive oriented. But if you had to give one an edge, it'd probably be the Grizzlies by a whisker. But I think those two teams are both very promising. So oftentimes, though, how many times throughout the course of NBA history have we seen smaller market teams be promising and then their stars leave for a big market? It just happens so often. So it's hard to believe in a long-term type of deal here because of what history tells us that their stars are going to get good and want to go to the Lakers or Celtics or Warriors or something like that.
Hoopswire.com is where you can find Sam Amico. He joins us on OutKick. So, Howard Stern, his show, no one chirps back at Howard Stern. You can rip on anybody but Howard. No one chirps and rips on LeBron. But here comes Dylan Brooks. What do you make of what he's doing where he's not afraid to speak up and talk trash to the king?
I think it's great. I think Dylan Brooks is great. I think that, all that back and forth with Draymond Green that he had earlier this year, the incident he had with Shannon Sharp, I thought all that's great. You know what? Because we always talk about, some of us older guys talking about the good old days when all the NBA players weren't friends and the bad boys Pistons and the toughness. And I think Dylan Brooks brings that. And look, some people get annoyed because he's talking so much without having really accomplished anything. The Grizzlies haven't really done much. They got to the second round of the playoffs last season. So people get annoyed with that. But at the same time, I think it's good for the NBA. It's good for the league that you don't have, everybody constantly praising each other. It gets ad nauseum. It gets sickening. It gets boring because all these players supposedly love each other. And I think that Brooks does have the respect that he should for, guys who have been there like LeBron James or Draymond Green or some of these other guys. But I think his style and the Grizzlies style, that's how they're going to be successful, by being the bad guys on the block and the new kids on the block. And I think it's good for the league. They'll say they don't like it, but I think they really do deep down because it brings intensity to some of the rivalries.
I agree.
I also think, you brought up the Bad Boys Pistons, a good example. While, I don't know that you necessarily want to see guys kicking each other in the NBA being so high profile, it's also not necessarily a bad thing for the animosity that it brings and the interest. I mean, we're probably going to pay more attention to Draymond Green now when he comes back in after having kicked Domantas Sabonis. Now with Joel Embiid, swiping with his huge, whatever size shoe that is, at the junk of Nick Claxton, right? That adds a little intrigue when those guys get back together. I mean, it's not a bad thing, though, right, Sam, to have some of this animosity. You don't want to see cheap shots left and right, but I think from a league perspective, it can't be the worst.
Right. This is what playoff basketball is supposed to be about. You're right. You don't want anybody getting hurt in these situations, and you don't want it getting too drastically bad. But look, this is where it's at. This is where you've got to survive and advance. And, the NBA has always been accused of being too soft, probably the last decade or more. Well, that's kind of changed, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Nobody's getting hurt. Thankfully, Embiid missed on that kick. Otherwise, that could have been a serious situation. And, Draymond did not miss. But Sabonis grabbed his ankle first. So, there's nothing wrong with the league, I think, and the players upping their intensity and, getting to the point where they get frustrated easily because the stakes are higher and it gets a little more physical. The playoffs are supposed to be physical. That's the way they've always operated up until about 2007 or 2008, and it started getting a little soft. And I think it's good for the game, this kind of grinded out style. And if guys get into it, they get into it. One thing I found interesting, speaking of the Bad Boys guys, is here you have Draymond Green getting a suspension, and the guy who suspends them, the executive vice president of basketball operations, is Joe Dumars, who played on all those Bad Boys teams. So, it's just kind of ironic how that all works. But, and Dumars was the one guy on that team who wasn't a knucklehead. So it's kind of interesting how this all works. But I think it's, the NBA is better in these playoffs to me because of all these reasons. Dylan Brooks, the physicality, a little bit of feistiness and fights. I think these are the best playoffs first round I've seen in probably 20 years.
Well, we're certainly talking more about the first round than we have. And Chad and I have been doing a show for 12. I mean, and we pointed that out too. Chad, by the way, size 17 for Embiid.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could have even guessed bigger on that. And with the Sixers, should their expectations be as big as Joel Embiid's shoes, size 17? Because it does feel like, Sam, a team that's sort of been on the precipice of something great for a little while now. Is this a year when you see the way the East could open up? They've got that 3-0 series lead in round one where maybe they could go on a run to the finals.
Yeah, if you had asked me last week, I probably would say no. It's the Celtics or the Bucks, but they've looked good. And winning a game on the road when you're up 2-0 is never an easy task, as we saw with the Kings and some of these other teams. But the Sixers to go in, and the Nets, no, they don't have Durant or Irving anymore, but they're still a formidable group. And to go into Brooklyn and win that game last night was pretty impressive. They're definitely more determined. One of the knocks against Embiid and obviously James Harden is they can't get you to the finals. And the East really is wide open. Both conferences are wide open. The NBA's been dying for this for years, where you have parity going into the playoffs and you have no idea who's coming out. For the longest time, Celtics, Lakers, or Michael Jordan's Bulls. And then, a couple of years ago, it was the Cavs and the Warriors every year. You knew that going in the playoffs. Anymore, you don't know. It's pretty wide open. And that would give a team like Philadelphia that hasn't been able to push through the Eastern Conference and come up short time and time again under Doc Rivers or with Joel Embiid. This opens the door for them. And I think that they have just as good of a chance the way they look now, good of a chance as Boston or Milwaukee. Really are the other two main contenders in the Eastern Conference.
There's no doubt that Phoenix has the star power when you look at that roster, but it feels like a team when you watch them that's still feeling their way out as a unit. What do you think about what you've seen from them so far against the Clippers and their chances?
Well, the Suns have looked a little rusty. Kevin Durant he's put up numbers, but he just hasn't looked quite the same in the playoffs. He did when he first kind of came back and played those 3 games with the Suns. After the trade deadline, he'd been out a little bit because of the knee injury. And then, of course, we all saw him, sprain an ankle during warm-ups while going up for a layup. Since then, since that ankle thing, he came back. He's not been the same. There's been the 30, 27-point games, but he just hasn't seemed himself. And I thought the Clippers did a phenomenal job last night, even though they lost, gave themselves a reason to believe. They didn't have Paul George, didn't have Kawhi Leonard, and really were in it to the end. Russell Westbrook had his best game since he came to LA, and that includes with the Lakers. So, I think that maybe they got some signs of life. I haven't been overly impressed with the Suns. Everybody coming into the playoffs was kind of like, well, now that Phoenix has Durant, they're coming out of the Western Conference. But frankly, I don't see them looking any better right now than the Kings or Grizzlies or Warriors or Lakers or especially Denver Nuggets. We don't talk about the Denver Nuggets because they don't excite anybody. But one of those teams is going to have to probably play Denver, which has an MVP candidate, Jokic, and looks really good. Not to get too far off topic, I think that Suns-Clippers series probably going to go 7. I think the Clippers have a great shot to win it if Kawhi Leonard can play.
2-1 series lead there for the Suns. You mentioned the Nuggets. Have we talked less about a number 1 seed in the playoffs than the Denver Nuggets right now? And it's not their fault that the Warriors are a 6 seed, but we're talking more about the Kings than we are the Nuggets.
Yeah, it seems like every story in the West is kind of better than Denver, but Denver really held the number 1 seed for most of the regular season and really had, you really don't have a reason not to believe in them, except for the fact that they're the Denver Nuggets. People hold that against them. if they were the Los Angeles Lakers right now, people would be saying this team is going to the finals, no questions asked. But again, Denver doesn't have that tradition, doesn't have any flash. You know, I watched them. I can't stick with them. I watched them against the Timberwolves twice for part of the game. I just couldn't stick with it. There's just nothing exciting about the Denver Nuggets, I'm sad to say, except for the fact that they win. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of depth. And their coach, Mike Malone, is fantastic and has proven that time and time again. So, you know, nobody is picking the number one seed in the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets, to go to the finals. But the reality is they may be the best team in the Western Conference, whether people like it or not. So, you know, it's just a matter of teams getting buzz, certain teams getting buzz because of their large fan bases or large markets or whatever. And the Nuggets just have never been. I think people still care more about the Avalanche in Denver than they do the Nuggets.
I was listening to a conversation last week about the Nuggets have to feel the most pressure of any NBA team, and I'm thinking no one talks about them. Like I don't hear anything other than that
Sam just
storyline.
said they talk about them in their own town. Even.
Yeah, right. Like, so I don't know if they actually feel the pressure, even though they are built to win it this year. And is Jokic your MVP of the league? And if so, I mean, they should win it this year.
Yeah, I mean, if true MVP, he would, you know, carry you to the championship. Yeah. I probably would go with Antetokounmpo.
Okay.
Just because the Bucks are, you know, they're a power when he plays, and we've seen what happens when he doesn't. Sometimes that game one, he missed most of it, and just all of a sudden the Bucks are out of sorts. They recovered for game two, but I think with Jokic, you know, he's one of those guys who looks like he's moving in slow motion. I think he would have been a fabulous player for the 80s and 90s because he's a big guy who can do it all. But he's very mechanical, you know, and he's not, there's no flash to his game. You're not going to see any high flying dunks or, you know, alley-oop passes, although he's a great passer. He's just very steady, very fundamentally sound, and he's got great size and great smarts. So, and he's a winner, you know, but there's a lot of things I just listed aren't sexy, you know, they're not going to move the needle on Instagram. So, I think that's part of it too, and the fact that the Nuggets really haven't made a whole lot of noise in the playoffs, except for I think it was 2019 when they were the first team to come back from consecutive 3-1 deficits. But you know they've got a lot of talent. Jamal Murray's a nice player. Michael Porter Jr. is a nice player. Aaron Gordon's a nice player. So they certainly could emerge from the West, much to the chagrin of the rest of the NBA and perhaps the league offices.
Sam, I know TV rules the world, but man, Game 3 is coming up. You know, you've got the Lakers and Grizzlies played on Wednesday. Game 3 is coming up tomorrow. Like, why do we have to wait so long in between games? Why is the NBA insistent on stretching this out the way they do?
Yeah, you know, sometimes. Excuse me, it has more to do with like sometimes the venues are filled. I know in Cleveland they had to stretch it out because there's an Adam Sandler concert, you know, and you can't really move that. So a lot of times these venues are scheduled in advance because you have no idea who's going to playoffs half the time. But also to your point, yeah, a big part of it is television. You know, the NBA really needs ratings. They survived off these television contracts, and they're, you know, another one's coming up soon. They're in the middle of kind of negotiating and feeling things out. And there's a lot at play or a lot at stake here with their next television contract. They want to make themselves a viable product. So you've got to put yourself in front of audiences when people are more inclined to watch. You know, we hear about Disney now and ESPN. They've got massive layoffs coming. There's like 3 rounds of layoffs. They're looking to cut $5.5 billion in costs at ESPN. So, you know, the NBA has to convince these potential broadcast partners that we're a great product for you and continue to give us a whole lot of money so that we can continue to, you know, pay our bills. Right now, the NBA is just trying to pay the bills. They're not like money's not growing on trees right now in pro basketball. So big thing is for them, get on television when there's eyeballs and we can get the maximum ratings. And that goes back to probably why they're rooting for the Los Angeles Lakers, Warriors, and Celtics, and those type of teams, because they have to go to potential sponsors, potential broadcast partners, and say, look, our product is flourishing, so pay us way too much money for it.
Yeah, and the one thing they have now is they've got the agreement with the CBA, where the Players Association and the league, they can go to their TV partners, potential, and say, hey, we this is not going to happen, where there's going to be a stoppage midway through and some disagreement. That's good for negotiations moving forward, too. Sam, it's great to catch up with you, man. Next time you join us, because I joke, but it's real. I mean, we've got a month and a half or 2 months left of this postseason. Which team could be the surprise team of a group that maybe they trail by 2 games right now, down 2-1? I know you mentioned the Clippers. Is there a team that comes to mind that we're talking about that will surprise us?
Well, I think in the Eastern Conference, you have to watch out for whoever wins this Cavs-Knicks series, because I suspect this series is going to go 7 games. Nobody's really talking about these teams.
Yeah.
But both of them have played playoff-style basketball all season. They both have dynamic guards. Cleveland has 2 of them. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell's probably second-team All-NBA this year, and the Knicks with Jalen Brunson. But I really, and obviously Julius Randle in the front court. Cavs have all kinds of young talent. Sometimes, we saw the Atlanta Hawks in 2019 get to the Eastern Conference Finals with a really young team. And sometimes when things are wide open, you can have a surprise Cinderella team like that. And I suspect that if the Cavs can get past the Knicks, then they could be kind of that team. They would have to play the Bucks in the second round, but everything we're seeing from the Bucks right now, they're not unbeatable, especially with Antetokounmpo with these nagging injuries. So, that's a possibility. And if the Cavs don't win and the Knicks win, I could see them doing it, because both of those teams are very good defensively. And in the playoffs, you play good defensive basketball in the regular season all season long. Then you get in the playoffs, it's not a big deal. You don't have to change everything you do. And both those teams, great rim protectors, very physical teams, and some dynamic talent. So I don't know who's going to win that series. I'm not about to predict it. I can't get a feel. It's 1-1 right now. But I think either team that comes out of that series could potentially be your dark horse in the playoffs and maybe advance all the way to the conference finals. I'm not going to say finals yet, but they both have the kind of makeup. And Tom Thibodeau, just a fantastic playoff coach, because he has his team playing that style all season. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those 2 could be your kind of dark horse, NCAA tournament style dark horse in these playoffs, I think. And you know what? If the Sacramento Kings beat the Golden State Warriors, everybody's going to be saying what a huge surprise it is, even though the Kings are favored in that series.
If only we had these storylines during the regular season, Chad.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Tell me about it. As a guy who runs a basketball website, I can tell you, I long for storylines during the regular season.
And a good site as well, hoopswire.com, is where you can find Sam Amico, and we'll continue to be checking that throughout the playoffs, and hopefully we can check in with you as well, Sam, as we move forward into the next couple of rounds here.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thanks a lot for having me. It's great to be back, and I get to catch you guys a couple times a week. So sometimes I'll be working on the site, and I'll be listening to you guys and checking out OutKick and all that. So
we appreciate you, Sam.
Great to
Thanks.
be on.
There's Sam Amico
all right,
there.
Guys.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Chad, great storylines in the NBA. The next big storyline in the NFL will be Joe Burrow's contract. That'll be number 1. But there is a number 1 contract that we will all be looking at again whenever the $500 million contract was announced for Patrick Mahomes a couple years back. Well, the Chiefs are going to address that, and they're making sure they know that the MVP knows that he's priority for KC. Details next on Hot Mic.
thing you'll notice is every pitcher will do this or this or this, and that's to get moisture for this. Okay, this is rosin, and the rosin bag, if you can probably see this, it's coming out. There's a little dust, right? It's like a little fine powder. Of itself, it's not sticky. Like I have rosin in my hand, it's not sticky. However, the second I do this, when I'm sweating, I make the rosin sticky. That's when I go back to the ball and rub the ball up to give me a little more adhesion between my hand and the ball. Now, here's the thing. If you think about this, if I put a fine powder on my hand and then I make that powder wet that makes it sticky, any dirt that I come in contact with is going to stick to my hand. All right. So what you're going to see over the course of a couple innings will be my hand will start to darken because it might look like a substance, but it's not. It's just sticky rosin that has dirt in it. Now, I was a guy, so here's the thing. I threw a split finger fastball, right? I did not want the ball to stick to my fingers ever. So I didn't want rosin in between my fingers. So I would wash the insides of my fingers between innings with alcohol if it got too sticky. However, there are other guys that throw sinkers, certain breaking balls, who will want the ball to be extra sticky, and they'll just let their hand muddy up. Now, the umpires can certainly say, hey, listen, you got to wash it off. That's fine. But they have to acknowledge that just washing it off isn't going to change the fact that it's sticky, because you go back to the rosin, you have more moisture, it gets stickier. Your hand's going to look dark no matter what, right? And if you touch your hat all the time, you'll see that Major League Baseball players' hats a lot of times will get dark under the brim or dark at the cap. Also, guys like Gaylord Perry that used to cheat, they would use Vaseline on the inside of their caps. They would use Vaseline on the inside of their bottom lower lip because it stayed there. And you see guys that used to do this a lot. That was what they were doing, and then they'd lick their hands. Anyway, so your hand's going to be, so Max's hand was clearly in a non-agreeable state to the umpires. He went back. I'm sure he watched it. But he came back, and you could see the way he was arguing. He didn't do, in his mind, he didn't do it. He followed their orders. He did what they said to do. And this ambiguous rule needs to be fixed and changed. Rosin, I don't know how you do that, but the umpires are put in a really bad situation now, once again, because they're not given a set rules of engagement. And anytime you give somebody the ability to engage without rules defined, you have massive problems.
White Sox pitcher Louis Giolito left Tuesday's game versus the Phillies after 6 innings with a no-hitter. He had thrown 102 pitches, but they shut him down. The no-hitter was broken up by the relievers. I can't imagine. I think I know what you're going to say, but any chance you get off the hill with a no-hitter after 6?
So whoever's back at the control center with the curse button, be ready. There's no chance. None that I come out of the game. And to the point where if you told me I was coming out, I would still go out to the mound and force you to have all 3 of us standing on the mound at some point. No chance. And when I played, that probably wouldn't have happened. It's a different game now. There are and guys being okay with it, I think, is an enormous red flag to how these guys are being raised in the minor leagues. Yes, you respect your manager and your coach, but at some point you earn the right to help coach yourself if you're responsible and your coach trusts you and stuff like that. And no, none, absolutely none.
Chad, we mentioned earlier this week with the contract for Jalen Hurts, we've had big discussions and so maybe some controversy from people that see the graphic.
The graphic really threw people, the 1 through 4. How is Pat Mahomes not in the top 4?
Where is Patrick Mahomes? Well, he's not getting the contract extension after a first contract is about to expire for the topic that we had yesterday and how we ranked the 4. But Brett Veach, the general manager of the Chiefs, says the team will assess Mahomes' contract after a couple of more quarterback deals occur. That means you're the best. You know what? We're not going to jump in now and extend and restructure. We're going to wait until
when the better guys,
the top guys set the market, and then we're going to have our guy reset the market.
Yeah, it's also what a world to be in if you're Patrick Mahomes, because
in 2020 it was a 10-year, $503 million extension.
Well, it would be great if you could just say, I mean, he's under contract, so we're not talking about it. But instead, it's no, we'll wait
8 more years.
We'll let that Burrow guy and a couple others sign. Then we'll decide how much more we're going to pay our guy. We're going to restructure what he's already making, which is a ton of money.
Yeah, and all of it's a ton of money. But in regards to where he is right now, he's currently 6th among all quarterbacks in average annual value.
It feels like the top
which is crazy
players in the league, it's almost become like a college football coaches type thing.
Yeah.
Where it's year to year. So college football coaches, their contract means nothing. They accomplish something one year, they're going to get re-up the next year and get a raise every single year. If Kirby Smart becomes the highest paid coach in football, the next year Brian Kelly becomes the highest paid, or Nick Saban, or Ryan Day, or someone, and just one on top of the other. And then other guys who had a good year, regardless of what their contract says, if they exceeded expectation, they're going to get a bump in pay. They're going to get an extra year or two on their contract. It feels like with the very top guys, the elite guys in the NFL, we're almost at that level where it doesn't matter what their contract says. The next year, they can just say, well, I've outperformed it. Pay me more money.
Unless you're Watson, and then no one touches it. No one can surpass that.
Yeah, and then there's Deshaun Watson, who just got the biggest sweetheart deal of all time, who just says, I'm good. He's telling the rest of the league, hey, I'm good over here. No need to restructure.
Chad, is the high school player good after taking a spike, the meet the Fockers type moment from the transgender player in volleyball?
No.
You see this highlight at OutKick?
It's ridiculous. Look, there's co-ed volleyball. I see it all the time. There's a local Hooters over here that has volleyball every Tuesday and Thursday night, I believe.
Really?
Pass by
you just drive by. You don't actually go.
I don't go to Hooters. Yeah, sure. That's like the line of old school. Oh yeah, I didn't go to Hooters this time. Yeah, sure. Okay. No, there's sand volleyball. Men and women play it all the time. But it is ridiculous, as we are consistently stating on this show and across OutKick, that a biological man is allowed to compete against women in women's sports. It's not co-ed volleyball that's taking place. And the spike was heard around the world.
I mean, it was much like
it was a legitimate
Stiller.
spike. It was a legitimate spike. Yeah.
I mean,
except I don't think this young girl was like with Meet the Parents. There was a bloody nose situation, like a bust her face. This looked like off the forehead and a fallback.
Yeah, but
from the video that I saw,
she's still suffering from that spike, though, is what she's saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
there you go.
Tough. Again, biological men should not compete against biological women in women's sports. This is an opinion that is consistent with, I'm going to guess, 98 to 99% of Americans, and maybe that's a bit conservative. A high number of Americans would agree with us.
Chad and I played on a
only the craziest
kickball team where it was co-ed.
We played co-ed, and I thought about it like you threw the ball at people to get them out,
Chad's
and you kick it hard. Like, what if we'd have been in that situation where we threw it a little too hard and caught some girl in the face?
I mean,
not funny, but it would have been one that's like, man, I feel really bad.
It looks just like a scene from Meet the Fockers.
OutKick would have written a story about us.
Headlines next.
There by the grace of God.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here. Friday edition, getting you to the weekend. Live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hunter Withrow for Hot Mike. Across the OutKick Network, which you can find on YouTube. Just search out OutKick. We hope you'll subscribe, like, and share the channel. Chad, we've got Ryan
1 hour
Leaf.
left, Hutton. We got to
Ryan
close strong.
Leaf
Close
coming
strong.
up in about 20 minutes. Great conversation ahead there with the quarterbacks and more. Now hosting the Straight Line Pod. Friend of the show, and we'll get his take on quarterback class. He's got some opinions on the top wide receivers as well. And expectation and pressure versus listening to your critics, which he's been very open and honest about. And I'm curious what he would say to C.J. Stroud or anyone else that's, quote-unquote, falling down draft boards a week before the draft.
I can't wait to ask him also about, we talked about certain quarterbacks that may be later first round like a Hendon Hooker
Yeah.
or second round or, possible third round picks. I think about, Desmond Ridder a year ago in Atlanta, Malik Willis with the Titans, and a good spot to be in. From a pressure standpoint, from a draft pick standpoint, not about the most money or being the highest draft pick, but the value of a quarterback being drafted in the right spot where there's not a ton of pressure early, where they can develop more, and it's a good system fit for them that turns out to be ideal. I'll give you an example. Jalen Hurts in Philly. That was perfect. Perfect landing spot for him, and now he's the richest guy in the NFL. So maybe, not one player necessarily, but I can't wait to ask Ryan about the concept of fit and spot that minimizes
opposite,
pressure.
Just thinking, Jordan Love. Opposite of great situation. I mean, you want to play well before year 4.
Right.
And my guess is backing up Aaron Rodgers in that situation was much like Aaron Rodgers backing up Brett Favre years ago. Not very good. Even though, everyone's teammates, not very good. The one thing I haven't heard anything on is development of Jordan Love. And he's had nothing to do but develop.
And it could have been the perfect spot had Aaron Rodgers played one more year and there was no pressure on him in year 1, right?
But then he went on to win the MVP.
It turned into an awkward situation because Aaron Rodgers didn't want him there.
Chad, reports are that the Las Vegas A's, whenever the Oakland A's moved to Vegas, the first season could be in 2027. I'm surprised it's not sooner. Are you?
That is
and 2027 would be the AAA ballpark they could play in at the time before they actually go into their ballpark.
That is a long, long wake that's going to happen because the death of the Oakland A's has already happened. They have flatlined. They have no pulse. And to have to stay in Oakland, that is so awkward. It is 2023.
I know.
Let's do the math. The rest of this miserable season with this miserable team that they're not even really trying to win, and not trying to improve stadium facilities at all.
Well,
2024, 2025, 2026.
And that's the
basically 4 whole seasons they're going to play in Oakland.
Well, but they're considering trying to move to the AAA park just full time prior to when not even spend another season in Oakland. They would just move to the AAA affiliate.
Well, they should absolutely do
the
that.
Aviators.
if Major League Baseball will let them. Look, the Oakland Coliseum is a dump, so their standards must be pretty low for a major league facility. But I feel like there's some sort of standard where you can't play too long in a minor league facility if you're a Major League Baseball team. But if they can, leave now.
I mean, it's crazy.
Kick the minor league team out immediately and go play there.
So, I mean, this would be a great attendance for the A's. I'm not trying to. The stadium, the ballpark that they're considering in Vegas, just before they open, which will be a 30,000 seat stadium, is capacity at 10,000. That's crazy to think about the environment there versus traveling anywhere else. It's like the one-off games for Field of Dreams or whatever.
Puerto Rico. When they go there, for the Little League World Series games.
Or in Pennsylvania,
they play the one in Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
I mean, I understand why.
Series.
Maybe it'll be an upgrade for them.
For sure. And again, to me, it would just be letting Major League Baseball allow you to use a minor league park.
Yeah.
But get there in 2024 as soon as possible. If that's an option, get out of Oakland. It's only going to get uglier and uglier. You're going to play in front of no one. And you're playing in an awful venue. So get to the minor league park quick.
Matt Patricia and Darius Slay are reuniting, and it's with the Eagles. But they also, they had some beef in the past with Detroit because Darius Slay left the Lions, joined the Eagles, and just lit a blowtorch on what was going on with the former head coach Matt Patricia of the Detroit Lions. But now he joins that staff and joins a loaded roster. I don't know if I'm not saying this is the Nick Saban rehab that some coaches go through to help out, because if Belichick didn't help him last year, and I don't understand what Belichick was doing, Philly, you could get the rub from the possible Super Bowl champion in 2023-24 Eagles. But I'm curious how Slay handles this whenever he speaks on it.
I like that. I like it when a player, anyone, is honest about their feelings about someone
honest.
or a coach. But let this be a lesson to Darius Slay that when you mouth off to this level about someone, what goes around comes around, and you can end up playing or working with that person again. So until you're retired from the league, maybe cool it on Matt Patricia is an evil person and an awful coach talk, because there may come a day if you continue to play that you have to work for him again or work with him, and this is the example that we have now. I would expect Matt Patricia to be professional about this and not be a big issue.
And this goes back to 2020 when he said that he lost all respect. Slay lost all respect for Matt Patricia and how he handled a team meeting room with him.
Yeah, I'm also extremely pissed if I'm Matt Patricia. I'm holding that grudge coming in. So they'll bury it. At some point, he'll do his job, but can't be pleasant in the early going now that those two are reunited.
Well, I'm thinking of Belichick cussing out Brady in meetings. You know, we've heard those stories. And it ties
to get everyone else's attention.
Yeah, so we take and Patricia's been there and seen that. And now Darius Slay is disrespected and loses all respect for his former head coach, which, I mean, I wouldn't respect the record either for what was going on in Detroit. But it ties in with Brady because Antonio Brown says that the fallout between he and Brady stems from Brady cussing out his agent, which is, I mean, I would expect Brady to do that.
Yeah.
Cussing out anyone.
Cussed out his agent about Antonio Brown or about just a personal beef with the agent?
He says, my agent is getting called, cursed out by Tom Brady over why he's pushing back for the contract for scraps. Imagine if you heard that the same guy that brought you in to win a ring, the same agent he told you to hook up with to go get the deal, he's not telling me. The guy's calling him saying, yo, cursing him out about scraps of a contract is what Antonio Brown is saying on the $1 million worth of game
I hear
podcast.
this, and I just like Tom Brady even more.
Me too.
Because what other player is going to pick up the phone and call another player's agent to cuss them out because he's pissed that he went to bat for someone and now the player wants more money because he did a good job, and Brady's calling him personally to say, you need to stop fighting back on this. He will take what we pay him. Basically, is what Tom Brady. He is acting on behalf of the Bucs organization and saying, your client will take whatever the bleep we pay him, and you will shut up about it and stop negotiating.
But I don't know, with Antonio Brown, I don't know what is reality and not. I mean, he screenshots messages from Brady and puts it on social media. He has he had that children's book, what appeared to be a children's book, that was photoshopped. And
that's right.
And he put it on Instagram. And the title of the book was "Daddy Doesn't Live Here Anymore," and it was Brady sitting alone in the home with mom and the kids packing up and leaving. And you could see Brady in the window. I mean, the guy's lost his mind. So I don't even know if this part is true anymore.
With someone like Antonio Brown, I do wonder, because he's always been a bit of a loose cannon, right?
Drew Rosenhaus fired him, not the other way around.
It's gotten worse over the years. So the biggest fear is like it's somehow CTE related or head trauma related. The other thing is maybe he was just always a little nuts. I think that might be part of it. And it's just manifesting itself a little bit more now.
Yeah, but
I mean, mental health, it can creep up on you in different ways, and it can compromise your mental health. But also, I feel like with Antonio Brown, maybe this was always there, and we're just seeing more of it now because his behavior is completely unstable.
But the locker room with both Le'Veon Bell, Big Ben, just the Steelers. The first story I remember of him just being, I was like, what's he doing? Was when he went live on Instagram or
during the halftime speech.
Halftime or postgame. It was one of the two. And it was, this may have been the days of Ustream. It was so long ago. But I just remember thinking, like, what is he doing? And then that stems into wanting to be traded. Le'Veon Bell sits out that following year. Craziness in Pittsburgh. And meanwhile, he comes into Tampa after what happened in Oakland and then plays well, plays great with Brady. And then, I mean, to a point where you're thinking he's got a lot left. He can actually put it together. And then the moment it ends with Brady, he's blowtorching the guy on social media. Crazy.
January 17th, 2017. I want to look up when that happened. That is when he was in the Steelers locker room going live on social media. And that's where Mike Tomlin blasted him for doing that later. But he was live streaming the coaches talking to him and secretly posted the video of Mike Tomlin talking. It was following a victory, and he was getting Mike Tomlin talking about the win.
And it was in KC?
I think so. Yeah, it was a road game.
Yeah, because the Kansas City locker room is very tight quarters. I mean, it's awful for the visiting team at Arrowhead. So that I remember that because there's no way that he could have been doing that and not know that what he was doing was broadcasting live.
Yeah,
that Tomlin.
This was in advance of an AFC Championship game that year. He was on Facebook Live.
Facebook Live.
He then later deleted it. But
so
I wanted to know the time only because, and they were going to New England for the AFC Championship game that year. Only because, Hutton, that you're right. That was kind of the first big signal that, man, this guy just isn't like celebrating on the field and doing some crazy things at times.
Well, there may have been other
Something
things.
else is going on, but that was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was a little over 6 years ago that started.
Odell Beckham Jr., police are investigating an assault allegation. Video evidence could prove he's innocent. That's his side of things. Police reportedly investigating alleged assault. The new Ravens wide receiver accused by an unnamed woman of putting his hand around her neck. That's the quote from the report at Delilah in Los Angeles. This through TMZ. The woman alleges that Beckham went up to her, grabbed her throat with light pressure, according to the report, and then neither left the venue after the alleged incident. There was no further issues throughout the night, and then the report was filed a few days later. So, surface level, I think the headline does a disservice to Odell Beckham Jr. in this case, based on just the details of the report from the woman alone.
Yeah, there's a lot of this. Jonathan Majors, the actor, now I know is going through this also.
But there would be video evidence too.
Yeah, but there's a lot of just with Jonathan Majors' case, his attorney's like, we have irrefutable evidence that this is completely made up, and in fact, my client is the victim of an assault, if anyone is, from this woman, and now there's other women testifying against him in trial. So. I say that because one allegation, could lead to others claiming different things also.
Could, but the owner of Delilah in L.A. is saying that we were contacted about this investigation. We reviewed the videos. The claim is false. There's no evidence of this person even being in the area where she claimed the incident occurred. And again, like nothing happened that evening, and a few days later, it was hand around the throat, light pressure, and we're quoting the police report. Or the allegation.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see what stems from this.
We'll monitor the story.
But I don't think this would even have affected his signing last week in Baltimore.
No, I don't think so. This isn't one that I saw and I thought, oh man, Baltimore's really, mad about that now.
Well, headline-wise, initially when I saw the headline, I'm like, oh, what's going down?
Yeah.
And then you read the details of it, and it's like, this just seems off.
It's a wait and see. This one to me was an immediate wait and see.
Coming up, Ryan Leaf scheduled to be with us. We will
be good.
Dive into a variety of topics with the former number 2 overall pick and get his take on the pressure related to the NFL draft and expectations. And Chad, you bring up a good topic of discussion with him on great fits and perfect situations for quarterbacks that are deemed top 10 talent but need a year or two to get their legs and figure out the development of what's required from college to pro. Ryan Leaf joins us next on OutKick.
primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number 1 pet peeve, telemarketers. Number 2 pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number 3 pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number 4 pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you gotta keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. I believe in it. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Glad you're with us across the OutKick Network. We are live at 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, Hutton and Withrow with Hot Mike. Hope you subscribe to the OutKick channel if you're watching on YouTube right now. And pleased to be joined by Ryan Leaf, friend of the show, and doing great things with the Straight Line Pod and much more.
Gave us a great Mexican restaurant recommendation in L.A. when we were there for the Super
He did,
Bowl.
indeed.
So he's a man of many talents.
Yeah.
Many talents.
Ryan, what's up, man?
What's up, fellas? Good to see you. Good to talk to you. How's everything treating you down there in Nashville?
Solid. Chad's hoping for rain, quite frankly, because he doesn't want to start his 8 and under softball game that he coaches and then have it rained out in the second or third inning.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's an 8U softball game. I am the pitcher, the coach pitcher in the game, Ryan, and I'm currently texting with the league director, and I'm like, if you're looking at this forecast, we're going to get 30 minutes into this game, and it's going to be a thunder shower, 100% chance of rain, and I'm coaching 6 to 8-year-olds. So please call this game off before we get into it. Don't just don't pick up the grass and throw the grass in the air and look at the weather now. Let's try to project what's going to happen, just like we're going to project with you what's going to happen with these quarterbacks in the NFL draft. Hutton, see how I tied it all in the end? I tied it all together.
That's how it's going in Nashville, Ryan.
Yeah, that's how we tied it in.
Can we start with, what's Bill Polian? What's the beef with Polian today? Why does this continue to crop back up with the draft day story? I'm on your Twitter feed. You're going back and forth with people about things.
I think for years and years and years, I just allowed whatever anybody had to say about me because I just didn't think I was worthwhile enough to stick up for myself. Was more okay with kind of just being crapped on because that's kind of how I felt as a person. And, I've come to a place where I like who I see in the mirror, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going to allow people to continue to kind of bully and belittle me with falsehoods. Because, I already had enough character defects through the process, and those are good enough. You don't have to embellish the story at all. So I was just adamant that he stopped lying first off, and so I called him out. And sure enough, Bill and I had a conversation this morning on the phone finally, and I think we came to a good resolution around where we were at. I stuck to my guns. I was adamant about the things that I knew to be true, and I didn't want to hear it anymore. And so I think we came to a good place. Probably didn't need to use the expletives like I did in the tweet, but I just feel a lot more comfortable in my skin because I know my truth. And what that story was just really just to beat me up more on things that you didn't have to make up things to beat me up. I gave you enough stuff to beat me up on that really happened. And so I think we handled it like adults eventually, and we got to a good place.
I was interested. Thanks for letting me start there, because I just find it interesting that it comes up now, and it's been all these years.
It's not that him and Bruce Arians have been telling that story for 20 years. And so I just never clapped back.
What part of it is wrong? Like, where does this? You said you've allowed them to crap on you, right? Like what part of the story is just a bold-faced lie, as you say?
That I've ever met Bill Polian or had a conversation with Jim Mora, that I told them when they said, "What are you going to do if we were to draft you and you could come in a week from now?" And you're like, "No, I'm going to Vegas with my boys for 7 to 10 days." I mean, absolute nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. There were a couple things other things in the article about how my agent declined a private workout. The only thing I knew I was better at was being an athlete than Peyton Manning, right? I knew I could out-athlete him. So heck yeah, give me a private workout. Now I have a call into my agent, and if he went behind my back and did something, then I really feel disappointed that that I wasn't involved in that conversation. He also stated that the San Diego Chargers were granted a private workout. And on the way to the stadium, Bobby Beathard, after our private workout, and the Indianapolis Colts on the way in to my pro day workout, Bobby Beathard then looked at him and said, implying that my workout was horrible, that, hey, would you guys be interested in trading the pick? So there was just a lot of nonsense around it. Also, at the combine, everybody knew I had to go get an MRI for the Bears. That's why I missed the meeting with the Colts. And Jim Moore went crazy the next day because they told a story that I missed it on purpose. And so these were just things that have been ongoing. Bruce Arians continues to tell the same story. And like I said, I wasn't going to put up with them bullying me and belittling me anymore, because, I've taken ownership for everything I've done. Like, I don't have a problem doing that, but if it's not true, then don't do it. And so, I let them know. And a lot of people had my back because I think people knew the truth.
Well, it's an annual story, right? With some of these things and people bringing your name up, Ryan. I feel like every year around this time, is it a frustrating time? I know you've sat on this for a while and finally cleared the air and said, hey, that's not true, these things that are being said about me. But you said previously you'd kind of learned how to deal with it and just took it. But does it get frustrating at times when you hear,
no,
well,
I didn't.
avoid this guy?
I never learned how to take it. I thought I was a POS.
Yeah.
I thought I wasn't worth standing up for. Very bottom of the earth. I thought I shouldn't be alive. I thought I should be dead because of who I was. And so there was no self-esteem to even attempt to be like, I was more comfortable in somebody calling me human being than someone giving me a compliment. So I think once you find that surrender and that peace, there's something to that. And I also think the fact that owning everything that I have, like, I own it. I know my truth. I know telling my story because I don't lie about it. That's always the case. And so, there's accountability to it. And so I just held somebody accountable. We had a good conversation. He apologized. We're colleagues. We're able to move forward. And that's exactly the resolution me and my family wanted through the process. And, luckily for me, I have an unbelievable platform. Like, I'm on Good Morning Football every week. I have my own show. I'm on Sirius XM radio all the time. Like, I have a different platform. And I think that may have something to do with it too. Like, I felt I was in a safe space. That's incredibly meaningful.
Ryan Leaf is with us, and if you haven't had the chance to check out the Straight Line Pod, absolutely do it. And if you get the opportunity to hear him speak at a city near you, absolutely go and hear his story. And I've had the chance to do that. That's where Ryan and I connected. I'll vouch for you there too, Ryan, because it's amazing how you can stand up and vouch for things that you did versus where you're going. And, it's commendable. And I'm glad you had the conversation with Polian. What is it like going through the scrutiny of an NFL draft process, not just as a player, but as a quarterback, and not just as a quarterback, but a top prospect? Because we're a week out, and Chad and I discussed the cyclical nature of the draft process and the prospects, where one guy's going number one overall, all of a sudden he's falling down draft boards a month later. But now all of a sudden Bryce Young's back up at number one when C.J. Stroud was apparently there, and now he's not there anymore. Just the mental state of being that age and going through this process. What's it like?
Well, if your agent's doing the job he's supposed to be doing, he's made it very clear to you that don't believe anything you hear out there. Zero. This decision was made weeks ago. Who Carolina was going to take. This didn't just change a couple days ago. A new story came out. This, that, and the other. Frank Reich, Jim Caldwell. They knew who they were drafting first overall. plenty of time ago. And so this is all for show. This is all for you and I. It's for content. It's for the news and everything like that. But like I said, you can't. The only team that knows exactly what they're going to do are the Carolina Panthers. Everybody else has to wait and see what falls ahead of them. Carolina knows for a long time. I still think it's C.J. Stroud. I think this whole thing is a whole smoke show, and it has been for some time. It wouldn't surprise me, and there's been some rumbling that David Tepper has stepped in and maybe and voiced his opinion. I think that would be a mistake. He hired these men, Frank Reich, Jim Caldwell, to make this decision, and if all of a sudden he starts micromanaging in this situation, I think that would do a very, very big disservice to his new coaching staff, and I think it would already, start off in a poor direction because of it.
So the story today is that C.J. Stroud had a very bad S2 cognitive test score. No one cares about Wonderlic scores or S2 test scores about any other position other than quarterback, right? I mean, if you're evaluating another player, it doesn't matter. The background of the player, the family life of the player, none of that really matters for other positions, but it does matter, I guess, for quarterbacks. My question, Ryan, is how much should tests like these matter in evaluating these quarterbacks if you're a front office for an NFL team?
Less than zero. It's absolutely a hot topic point. I get it. I mean, I remember when we were taking the Wonderlic test, Peyton and I were sitting next to each other while we were taking it. Him and I looked at each other like, what the hell are we doing? I mean, how stupid is this? And I'm sure that's exactly how these guys feel. I mean, they want to do well. Don't get me wrong. You always want to compete and everything like that. But I mean, if you want to put it in perspective, Peyton went on to be a Hall of Famer, win a couple Super Bowls, and I went on to play for 4 years and be considered one of the biggest busts. And our Wonderlic scores were exactly the same. So, it's in the mind of the holder of these test scores. It's whoever wants to use that data to be part of their variables. I tell you right now that the scouts, the GMs, the coaches, when they come back with the grade from watching the film on the field against defenses, and I don't know if C.J. Stroud was I don't know if there was anybody better than C.J. Stroud out there at it, deciphering, using his cognitive mindset to decipher defenses, make the right play, and execute. So, I think this is just, I don't know where the smear campaign's coming from, why this was leaked, all the things like that. I mean, the stuff we've seen over the last few days, Brady Quinn talking about how he ghosted the Mannings, the first family of football didn't kneel and kiss the ring type of mentality. I mean, all this stuff. It was good to see Ryan Clark and a few other guys really kind of clap back at it. I think this is nonsense. If he were to fall down the draft ladder because of it, I think that would be amazing because he'd ended up in a place probably much better than the likes of Carolina or Houston, and maybe get a chance to really perform. But I think Frank Reich and Jim Caldwell, who was my quarterback coach in Tampa, I think they know what they're doing, and I think they've known for a long time.
I'm glad you brought that up about fit and what may be right for the player isn't always being the highest draft pick and the initial money you're going to get. We had this conversation earlier, Ryan, about you being maybe the perfect person to ask about this in the importance of a player getting to a spot based maybe even on their own psychology that the pressure system is right, where you're going to a place where maybe you're sitting for a little bit or maybe you're not, but either way, there's a different level of pressure that comes with it, and the supporting cast is going to be different. Your coaches are going to be different, but finding that right sweet spot for one of these quarterbacks, just how important is that for the longevity of their career?
Well, it's huge. It's just absolutely imperative, but they have no say in it. My hope is that quarterbacks that were considered to be top draft picks would start to use that leverage a little bit more. We saw Eli Manning do it. I knew that, if I knew the leverage that I had in '98, I would have done everything in my power to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, an organization that had a historic history of doing the right thing, of supporting players, just all the process. That's what I would have done. But most of us, this is a dream. Like this is something that we've been dreaming about since we were kids. And just the fact that we're going to get a chance to do it, we don't question it necessarily until maybe things are too late. And I don't think enough ownership has been laid at the feet of these organizations where they may draft an individual like myself, who certainly wasn't ready to be the star, wasn't ready to be the leader of men, or Anthony Richardson in this case, who I have a 3rd round grade on. And yet, most likely, he may go in the top 5. And if you don't have a plan in place for him, you are absolutely, risking everything with him. And then you can kind of just walk away with the rookie salary cap. You could, if he crashes and burns and everybody wants to call him a bust, you can walk away. Go get another quarterback. And everybody lays that at the feet of Anthony Richardson when, heck, guess what? He didn't choose to go top 5. He just wanted to play football. The fact that you laid that to him is a huge part of this. And I've been saying that over and over this offseason. And I don't know if I'm the only one actually advocating for Anthony Richardson's health, mental health, career moving forward, but it seems like I might be. And some people have hit me over the head with like I'm trying to keep a man down. It's just not the case at all. It is absolutely about caring for these players and wanting the best for them. I don't want anybody to be a bust. Like, I don't want someone to come along with more expectation and take over my slot at the very top. It's the last thing I want to do, right? I want everybody to have this amazing journey and be the most successful person they can at this level. So, being in the business that I'm in now, where I'm actually broadcasting and doing content and analyzing this, being around the NFL draft, it's been pretty great to be able to kind of talk about that from my perspective. I don't think there's a lot of people in the game that could have that type of perspective and understanding around what it means and what it goes through. And I don't think there's two variables you can't quantify are how you're going to deal with earth-shattering money. That's changing because of NIL. But the other one is, how are these guys going to deal with abject failure, public eye, with a microscope on you? You cannot prepare yourself for what that looks like and what happens when those expectations are so incredibly high.
Ryan Leaf with us across the OutKick network, host of the Straight Line podcast. I'm going to get your take on 2 wide receivers because I've seen what you've said, and I'm fascinated by the comparison for Quentin Johnston. Can we start there? And then Denzel Mims, who you have a very high respect for.
Marvin.
Oh, excuse me, Marvin, yes. And where you think the value is for him. But let's start with Johnston and who he reminds you of.
I don't like doing this, and I don't do it often. I don't make comparisons to current players. If I do make comparisons, it's usually about who they are when they come out of college. It reminds me a ton of Randy Moss. The length, the size, speed, the way he can take over games, that reminds me of Randy Moss coming out of Marshall. Now, I had no one had any idea that Randy would take over the NFL by storm like that, become a Hall of Famer. But this guy has those abilities. And so that's the comparison I'm making. So that's the capability I think he has if he were drafted in a place where he would get an opportunity to do something like this. And I hate doing that because I don't want to put any pressure on the kid. But he reminds me a ton of that of Randy Moss coming out of college. What he does with that talent, because I think there's a lot of players that come out of college with similar backgrounds to some of the NFL's greats that don't necessarily live up to it. But he has an opportunity because of his talent and what he's able to do out there as a receiver playing football.
And he's different than the other guys with his size, right? Like that's
yes.
also fascinating.
This is a smaller draft in terms of receivers and stature.
Steal of the draft, Marvin Mims. Why?
I love this young man. He is something special. He played in Jeff Levy's offense, which is really similar to a pro-style offense and what he does, the play calls. If you go sit in the film room with Jeff Lebby, all the cut-ups are NFL plays, all of them. It's pro-style offense, and he led the nation in yards per reception. He's an absolute burner. He's incredibly football IQ savvy. He can be a punt returner, a kick returner. So I have him as my third wide receiver. He's not going to get drafted that high. That's me. He's going to be a steal for somebody. And just like Detroit got with Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think this is kind of the similar thing that could happen for him.
Is there a quarterback version for you in that regard? Meaning, all we've done is talk about the top four guys. Is there another QB that comes to mind that you think can have just a solid career and be a solid pro for a second or third contract?
I like Hendon Hooker. The age thing, is something to think about simply because, you're starting a rookie out at 25, 26 years old, but he's got incredible experience. He is so accurate. He doesn't turn it over. I think if he doesn't blow his knee out, he's in the conversation with these other four guys. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's a team on the back end of the first round that moves in to get that fifth-year option for him, because he can't play this year, most likely. And even if he could a little bit, he goes to a team with a quarterback, coach can say, hey, he's not ready. His knees hasn't got to where it needs to be. Also, I really like Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA. And this has shifted a little bit for me because I watched him all through college. I just felt at times he disappeared. Chip Kelly's offense is incredibly difficult to maneuver. He did it for 5 seasons. Smart. He's a winner. He's a leader, all these things. And so he's a guy I think that could be the vein of a Jalen Hurts. Those are my comparisons of the two guys and what they can do and what he was when he came out. Now, I have a second-round grade for him. Anybody else necessarily does, so I doubt he goes in the second round. And I suspect he could be a late third or the fourth-round guy. And I think could be in a real solid position to maybe kind of be the Desmond Ridder of this year's draft and get an opportunity pretty quick to be a player.
Ryan Leaf has been with us on OutKick.
Good as always.
Congrats on where everything's headed, man. You've got the podcast. You mentioned what you're doing. It's. I mean, you're steamrolling right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty guy. 10 years ago, I was sitting in a prison cell, and now I'm talking to you from my new home here in Connecticut. My family's outside the door. And I get to talk ball for a living. I mean, if you'd have told me that 10 years ago, I would have told you you're absolutely nuts. There's no way that's even possible at all. So there's a lot of gratitude in the Leaf family household every day. And it's been awesome to get to know you guys, develop our relationship, our friendship over the past couple years. And, I think that's maybe the biggest thing and the biggest change that's come from all of this is that I was such a narcissist. It was always about me all the time. And now I make relationships and friendships like this where I care about what you have to say. I listen to it. I ask about your families. Those are things I never thought about before. And so it's really cool to, finally be able to find that, at 47 years old. That's a blessing.
And you turned us on to Casa Vega in LA. So we appreciate that as well. Ryan, congrats on all the success, man. Yeah, really appreciate this. This was great.
I hope your son's doing well too. I should have mentioned that. He's going to be
he's
throwing
great.
fastballs.
He's peering through the window at me right now. Speaking of your little league, he starts his little league tomorrow. And side note, it's with the Trumbull Little League, which, if you remember correctly, Trumbull, Connecticut, won the College World Series back in the '80s. So there's a history there. Chris Drury, you remember? Yeah, pitched, went and played in the NHL. Yeah, that was right here in Trumbull, Connecticut. So he's on the Cubs, which I love. The Cubs are my favorite team, so he's psyched. We're going to start tomorrow.
That's awesome. You'd be happy to know, too, my game is officially canceled. That happened over the course of this interview. So
there you go. Good for you, Dad.
Yeah.
Good for you, Dad.
Friday night off. That's right. Thanks, Ryan.
Ryan, thank you, man. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, boys, have a good night.
Same to you. Ryan Leaf there. Genuine guy. And love his honesty with the backstory with with Poley, and he's responding to people on Twitter asking questions, and I bring it up because it's all he's tweeting about today in response, and I'm glad he told
you brought
the
it
story.
up. I didn't know what was going on, so that was great.
Coming up, we discuss what we're going to be, what we feel like will be the storyline on Monday when we return from the weekend. That's next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in the land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, bold taste of a Southern legend.
Amazing quote from Steve Keim, the former general manager of the Arizona Cardinals. He was on The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Keim said that Nick Bosa, during the 2019 draft, warned him and warned Cliff Kingsbury in the pre-draft visit, quote, "I think you guys are probably going to take that little quarterback. And if you do, I will haunt you for the rest of your career." Ex-general manager Steve Keim telling that to Colin Cowherd. That's awesome.
Amazing. I like Nick Bosa a lot more now. I will haunt you for the rest of your career. Incredible.
And if you do, I will haunt you for the rest of your career. I can't wait to check out the rest of that interview.
Yeah, that's really good.
And he looks good, which is good because he missed halfway through the season last year for health reasons.
Yeah, some health issues.
Yes. Chad, what's the storyline we're talking about on Monday from the weekend?
Storyline we're talking about on Monday. Let me see what's happening over the weekend. Well, the NBA playoffs are happening. I'm going to go on a limb and say we have not seen the end of player altercation in the NBA. I think there's going to be another storyline. I don't know if it's a kick again. I don't know if we can be consistent with the kicking, but there's going to be something that's going to get someone ejected, and it's going to be a talking point come Monday. I think all this is good for the NBA.
Dylan Brooks could be at the forefront of this. He's got to live up to the trash talk.
Some legit animosity. Legit animosity is not bad for these playoffs.
I believe on Monday we'll be discussing the Golden State Warriors and how foolish we all were to expect them dead to rights down 0-2 in the first series against the Sacramento Kings.
I already feel foolish for saying they were going to get swept. I mean, I'm saying I can sense the champions not lying down, and now they're going to rise. Rise the Warriors.
World champions.
World champions.
Fun week.
Chase Utley, great clip. Check it out.
Big thanks to the crew here with the OutKick staff. For more, you can go to outkick.com. We stream live there starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, again on Monday, but also at OutKick on the YouTube channel. Just search out OutKick. Hit the subscribe button. You can see all the shows across the network. And you can also watch on demand. Clips, live broadcasts, and more. Hope you'll join us on Monday. Big show planned there as it will finally be the week of the NFL draft.
Yes.
It's upon us.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
For Hutton and Withrow, it's OutKick and Hot Mike.